blessed with a voice touched by angels. He won countless awards by the age of 16, when he was being bullied by the school's mean girl, Song Yen. I stood up for him, I took the slaps, the punches, even had 3 ribs broken, but I still shielded him, keeping him safely behind me. After I called the police, Song Yen was taken away. She was expelled from school and sentenced to prison. Even after her release, she was brutally assaulted and killed, left dead on the street. Later, Shin-chae became a celebrated superstar in the music industry, adored by all. To repay a favor from years past, his entertainment company signed me with a lucrative contract. Yet, at the very first business dinner, he drugged me and handed me over to various wealthy patrons, where I was violated and met my end. In my final moments, I saw Shin-chae's expressionless face. Now you understand the despair she felt before she died, don't you? So, he was getting his revenge. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day Shin-chae was being bullied. 1. There's nothing quite like trampling someone so high and mighty underfoot. Song Yen ground her high-heeled shoe into the boy's palm, the pale, clean skin instantly flushing a deep red, and that boy was none other than my deskmate, Shin-chae. I jolted back to reality from the death I'd experienced just a second before, gasping for air like a fish out of water. Hey, do you have a thing for him? She suddenly looked up at me, a malicious smile on her face, beautiful and dangerous like a poppy flower. I was taken aback for a moment. In my past life, Song Yen bullied Shin-chae in exactly this manner, then flippantly tossed this question my way, as if she had us both wrapped around her little finger. At the time, I was both embarrassed that she had seen right through me and furious about what she had done to Shin-chae. I pushed her aside and shielded Shin-chae firmly behind me. That very afternoon after school, Shin-chae and I were cornered in a dimly lit alley, a beer bottle smashed against Shin-chae's head, blood smearing across his handsome face. I desperately threw myself in front of him, taking slaps to the face and a beating from the mob that broke 3 of my ribs. I called the police despite Shin-chae's protests, and Song Yen was taken away. At the time, I was solely focused on treating the wound on Shin-chae's head, completely missing the venomous look in his eyes. His relationship with Song Yen was a love-hate one. But the hatred he harbored for me ran bone deep, a full 10 years, to the point of torturing me to death. The memory of that agonizing, shattering night sends an uncontrollable shudder through my entire body. But now, I've somehow been sent back to a time before I intervened to save Shin-chae. I looked up, meeting Song Yan's indifferent gaze from the window and the chillingly cold eyes of Shin-chae on the floor. No, I don't really know him. I turned and was about to leave this whole mess behind. Song Yen, however, shot a provocative smile at my retreating back. Good, a good girl like you should just focus on your studies. Don't go sticking your nose where it doesn't belong, or you'll be the one who gets hurt. With that, she lowered her head again with a playful grin. Shin-chae, don't you agree? In my past life, Song Yen had warned me in the exact same way, but back then, I didn't realize she was asserting her dominance. I simply took it as a threat aimed at both Shin-chae and me. Song Yen was a character of extremes, utterly flamboyant, while everyone else's youth was consumed by intense studying and awkward, unspoken crushes. She recklessly squandered her time, dating, skipping school, smoking, and drinking. She did it all. She relished the feeling of looking down on others, of holding herself above everyone else. She was the quintessential bad girl from every angsty teen story. Yet it was precisely this rebellious and unruly nature of hers that most captivated the well-behaved, obedient students. Take Shin-chae, for example. So, they were already entangled with each other at this point, too. I suddenly remembered that moment when I was dying, how I had dragged myself to his feet, clutching his pant leg with blood-soaked hands. I begged him to spare my life. I called the police to save you. Her death had nothing to do with me. Shin-chae looked down at me, his gaze as if he were regarding a vile, insignificant insect, his voice dripped with utter contempt. If it weren't for you, she never would have been arrested. She never would have angered the people in that prison and been deliberately targeted, dying such a humiliating death in the streets. He violently shook off my hand and instead drove his foot hard into my abdomen. When Xiao, her death is entirely your fault. I was in so much pain I convulsed. And only then did the hazy memory of Song Yan's cause of death come back to me. Even in prison, she remained defiant and did as she pleased, which provoked the top dog inside. The moment she was released, she was tortured to death. Shin-chae believes that if I hadn't called the police back then, none of this would have happened. Song Yen wouldn't have died a tragic death, and he wouldn't have spent a lifetime in agony over losing his beloved. I am a sinner. I don't look back now. I only keep my eyes on the road ahead, then I wish you a lifetime of making each other miserable. All of this has nothing to do with me." With that, I turned and strode away. Behind me, Song Yen raised an eyebrow in mild surprise. 3. The two of them were still locked in their love-hate dynamic. Soon, I arrived at the pivotal moment from my previous life. In the alley, Song Yen smashed a bottle over Shinche's head. This time, I was merely a passerby. Content to watch the scene unfold with keen interest, I was not involved. I need to see for myself whether Shinche is alive or dead, but the next instant, with a sudden ferocity, Shinche seized Song Yan's shoulders and flipped their positions. He crushed his lips against hers in a rough kiss. At first, she fought back, kicking and punching, yet, gradually, Song Yan's resistance melted away, and they became locked in a desperate, inseparable kiss, as if trying to fuse into one. So this is how the story unfolds without my interference. They started dating. Shinche followed Song Yan's lead, skipping class, hitting the bars, neglecting his studies, and smoking and drinking into the wee hours. He had completely forgotten that he was once the top student in his grade, the model child in every teacher's eyes. No wonder the seat next to me is often empty. When I heard all this, I just indifferently opened my book. In my past life, I saw Shinche as my beautiful, unattainable ideal. In my pursuit of that light, I even changed my dreams for him, setting my sights on getting into a music conservatory. In this life, free from his influence, I intend to return to the path I was always meant to walk. I will study hard and take the college entrance exam as a regular arts student. This means I must relearn everything and overcome many difficulties. But I am not afraid. I believe perseverance will be rewarded. That day, I overheard Song Yen sitting behind me, talking about Shinche with others. He's just a spineless idiot who doesn't even make a sound when he's hit. If I hadn't found it interesting to tame someone who was so cold, quiet, and a top student, I wouldn't have bothered with someone like him. Her two lackeys exchanged a glance, sounding skeptical. He seems so aloof and proud. Would he really just let you hit him and play with him like that? In my past life, I was solely focused on protecting Shinche, but I never realized, with his outstanding grades, whether he told a teacher or his parents, they would have definitely taken his side, yet he never said a word. It turns out he was willingly playing along with Song Yan's game. Song Yan curled her lips into a smug smile, radiating confidence. "Don't believe me," she said. "Fine, I'll prove it. He wouldn't dare disobey me. When I get back, I'll tell him he's forbidden from taking the conservatory's entrance exam." I knew exactly what that exam meant to Shinche. In my past life, it was his outstanding performance in that very exam that won over the judges, earning him a direct admission. It paved the way for his smooth rise in the entertainment industry. That was when the seed of his resentment towards me took root. He even spent years plotting, all to destroy me as revenge for Song Yen. Just as I was thinking that, Song Yen leaned close to my ear, looking at me with a knowing, half-smile. "As I recall, you said you wouldn't meddle in other people's business, right?" I took off my headphones and flashed her a smile. "I didn't hear a word you said." In this life, Song Yen was safe and sound. I couldn't help but wonder how their story would end, for, when I saw Shinche again, he was leaning against the entrance of an internet cafe near the school, a faint red glow at his fingertips, and behind the acrid smoke were his vacant, weary eyes. The ground at my feet was littered with empty bottles and cigarette butts. I wanted to avoid it, but it was the only way home. I decided to just pretend I hadn't seen him, but as I passed by Shinche, he called out to me. The moment he spoke, his voice was gravelly and hoarse. "Wen Xiaoxiao, can you get in touch with Song Yen? She blocked me, told me to get lost. Aren't you the class monitor? You must know her address. Please, tell me, I need to go find her." Shinche's eyes were bloodshot, with dark circles beneath them, clearly having not rested well for days. There was even a pleading tone to it, a far cry from his former arrogant and aloof demeanor. After speaking, he was racked by a violent coughing fit, looking all the more pitiful in the cold wind. He used to be meticulous about caring for his body, especially his voice. In memory, his voice was pure and clear, capable of painting all the beauty in the world through song, earning him the fan-given title of "a voice kissed by an angel." He never ate anything spicy, yet for Song Yan's sake, he threw himself into a downward spiral, drowning himself in countless drinks and losing count of the cigarettes he smoked. As a musical prodigy, his hard-won talent and all the effort he'd poured into his craft meant nothing in the face of Song Yan's decision to leave him. Of course I couldn't give him Song Yan's address. If anything happened, it would be like inviting trouble right to my doorstep. but he wouldn't let go of my sleeve. To get myself free, I had no choice but to make a call to Song Yen. A moment later, a clamor of noise came from the other end. Song Yen. Shin-chae is looking everywhere for you. Can you come and pick him up? Shin-chae's eyes lit up instantly, his face full of anticipation as he waited for a reply, but Song Yen just gave a careless laugh, toying with the lid of a lighter. Want to see me? Hearing Song Yen's voice, Shin-chae's reason snapped like a wild horse breaking free of its reins, and he snatched the phone. Yen, where are you? Listen to me, skip the exam, and I'll show myself. With that, Song Yen hung up the phone. Shin-chae seemed to lose all strength at once, sinking into a crouch. He buried his head in his arms, his shoulders trembling slightly. Is giving up my future and doing as she says the only way to get her back? Watching Shin-chae in such a disheveled and dejected state, I felt an unexpected flicker of satisfaction. Career or love? It's a classic dilemma. In our past life, because of me, Shin-chae was forced to choose his career. Now, with his love-struck mindset and the freedom to choose for himself, it was no surprise he picked Song Yen. 5. Shin-chae gave up on the entrance exam. His days of heavy drinking and smoking had caused irreparable damage to his vocal cords, but Song Yen was pleased that Shin-chae was listening to her, and she even spent less time hitting him. A trace of tenderness and deep affection softened Shin-chae's usually frost-cold countenance. They kissed on the school rooftop, sharing cigarettes in a haze of smoke, lost in a reckless, hedonistic daze. I heard this gossip just as I had finished a full set of practice exams, treating it as a way to unwind. Now, I am completely detached from it all, having become a mere spectator. Of course, some people were upset about missing such an important exam. His mother was a well-known local musician with a busy schedule. I once showed her the way during a parent-teacher conference. In my memory, she was elegant and polite, yet carried an air of aloofness. But she gave me a gentle smile and said I was a kind-hearted kid. Yet at this moment, she stormed into the classroom and, without a word, slapped Song Yen hard across the face. Shin-chae took advantage of his mother's frequent touring schedule and lack of time to supervise him, which is why he dared to date Song Yen so brazenly. Almost everyone in the school knew about their relationship. Even the principal criticized their rebellious behavior during the flag-raising ceremony speech. However, because Shin-chae was an academic standout and the school's dark horse, everyone turned a blind eye and no substantial punishment was ever handed down. And now, Shin-chae has thrown away his entire future for Song Yen. Shin-chae's mother pointed a trembling, hate-filled finger at Song Yen and raged. You're so young, yet you're already a master manipulator, you shameless little homewrecker. You've destroyed a son his family worked so hard to raise. Do you have any idea how much I poured into him? The hopes I had for him, because of you, all my efforts have gone down the drain. Clutching her stinging cheek, a look of mutual destruction in her eyes, Song Yen lunged forward and grabbed Shin-chae's mother by the hair, shrieking, You old hag, how dare you hit me? It was your son who came sniffing around me like a dog every single day. If it weren't for his pathetic groveling, I wouldn't have given him the time of day. Hearing this, Shin-chae's mother became visibly more agitated. When Shin-chae got the news and rushed to the classroom, he saw the sight of his own mother and the love of his life locked in a physical struggle. A crowd 3 layers deep had gathered outside the classroom, all there to witness the melodramatic spectacle. Shin-chae finally managed to push his way through the crowd, pulling the two apart and shielding Song Yen behind him. Mom, if you're angry, be angry at me. I'm the one who skipped the exam because I lost a bet. Yen is innocent. Hearing this, Shin-chae's mother completely lost it. In utter frustration, she started hitting him. Do you think exams are a joke? Do you take me for a fool? Shin-chae's mother never imagined that the son she had raised from childhood would throw away his hard-earned future for a woman he'd known for barely a year or two, all while lying to her face. She wiped her face and pushed Shin-chae away. And you call yourself an art student? You have no taste at all. To fall for something like this, get out. Both of you, get out. With that, she shot a glare at Shin-chae and Song Yen before storming out of the classroom. Her eyes swept over the crowd and came to rest on me. After a moment's hesitation, I still managed to say, Hello, Auntie. With tears welling in her eyes, Shin-chae's mother gave me a slight nod before turning away from the painful scene that had caused her so much heartache. Song Yen suddenly burst out of the classroom and grabbed me by the collar. You're the one who told Shin-chae's mother, aren't you? You're the only other person who knew about this. At that moment, Shin-chae fixed me with a glare that could kill. 6. I could see the two of them ganging up, ready to pin the blame on me. Before I could even open my mouth to defend myself, the principal hurried over. "Alright, everyone, let's break it up." I didn't expect Shinche's mother to get so worked up after hearing about this, he sighed, then fixed Shinche and the other with an authoritative stare. "A parent's heart aches for their child the world over. You two have behaved disgracefully, causing trouble time and again. You'll each receive a disciplinary mark on your record." The principal's statement effectively cleared me of any involvement. The story spread like wildfire through several schools, making Shinche and Song Yen somewhat infamous. Shinche believed his academic scores alone could get him into a good university. And he even promised Song Yen he would provide for her in the future. However, Shinche's mother was too soft-hearted to truly abandon her son, so she decided to transfer him to another school. Not only did he go on a hunger strike, but he also tore up all the musical scores he had composed, demonstrating his resolve to resist. It wasn't until a month later that I saw Shinche again. His right arm was in a cast, and he sat at his desk, staring blankly out the window. It turned out that in a fit of protest during an argument with his parents, he had been so overcome with rage that he stabbed a knife through his own hand. Blood instantly gushed out, and his face turned deathly pale. Shinche's mother fainted on the spot from the shock, and from then on, they simply let him have his way. Sensing that I had sat down beside him, his gaze suddenly turned sinister, and he whispered in my ear like a demon, "In this lifetime I will be with Song Yen. Don't even think about stopping me, or I swear I'll make you wish you were dead." 7. I was thunderstruck, frozen in place. It finally dawned on me that I might not be the only one who had been reborn. After a brief moment of panic, I quickly composed myself. In this life, Shinche severed the tendons in his own right hand, forever robbing himself of the ability to play any instrument. His body was covered in bruises inflicted by Song Yen in her rage, a patchwork of purples and blues impossible to conceal. Beneath the loose collar of his school uniform, faintly visible, were bite marks of varying depths, yet he saw these marks as proof of Song Yan's love for him, his badges of honor. This twisted affection left everyone aghast. All we can do is respect their choices, wish them well, and hope they stay together forever, for heaven's sake. Don't let them break up and go on to ruin other people's lives. Shinche's parents had completely given up on trying to manage him, otherwise, they'd surely be driven to an early grave by his antics. He hoped to turn his life around through academic success, but he'd forgotten that in his previous life, he'd been out of school for ages. In this life, he was too busy fooling around with Song Yen all day to have any mind for studying. It took me a full 2 years of hard work to relearn and master all the course material, finally securing a stable position within the top 3 of my class. I'm the only one who remembers how dazzlingly brilliant his life was in his past existence. He was enshrined in music history, performing to packed arenas where he could unleash his full talent, basking in the sea of blue light from his devoted fans. Yet all these sacrifices made for love would eventually fester into a thorn buried deep in the heart. I am waiting for the day that thorn pierces them both. 7. They made their relationship official with a splash, openly dating all over campus. It was their senior year of high school. Concerned about college admission rates, the school, considering Shinche's past record, could only issue them demerits and warnings. Song Yen still dragged Shinche to bars by day and onto her motorcycle by midnight. Not only that, she could tell Shinche came from a well-off family. His mother's clothes and accessories were all designer brands, so, like a vampire, she kept pestering Shinche for money, but Shinche had long since cut ties with his family, and his parents had frozen his cards. Back then, short-form videos were just taking off. Shinche tried to capitalize on his handsome looks by going live, performing bizarre and exaggerated stunts to attract viewers, but the results were less than impressive. Yet, he could only rely on live-streaming tips and his dwindling savings to support himself and Song Yen, but this was far from enough to satisfy Song Yan's materialistic desires. Whenever Shinche couldn't come up with the money, Song Yen would beat him mercilessly, as if he were a sworn enemy. These anecdotes began circulating around the school once again, but I had no interest in that. I was solely focused on grinding through practice problems and analyzing the mock exam papers. With the college entrance exam looming, there was no room for the slightest carelessness or complacency. The moment I walked out of the exam hall, I was flooded with a sense of relief and elation like never before. 2 years of hard work all came to fruition on that day. I was familiar with the knowledge behind every single question on the test. But Shinche, on the other hand, was a different story. He ran his hands through his hair in frustration, muttering to himself in disbelief. How could this happen? The college entrance exam questions have changed. All this time, Shinche's confidence had stemmed from the fact that he had already taken this year's college entrance exam and remembered all the questions. But who said the college entrance exam only had one version of the test paper? After the college entrance exams, the school organized a graduation trip for the seniors, with participation and fees being voluntary. Thinking it would be a great way to unwind, I signed up. To my surprise, Song Yan and Shinche showed up together, hand in hand. Song Yan was wearing a sexy spaghetti strap mini dress, with her hair styled in mature, loose waves and dyed a shade of pink. Shinche had also undergone a dramatic style change, sporting a garish, brightly colored shirt and having dyed his hair blonde. It was probably Song Yan's handiwork. Stuck in the middle of our group of freshly graduated students, the two of them stood out like a sore thumb, watching Song Yan strut around with her nose in the air. A female classmate next to me adjusted her glasses and said with clear disdain, Song Yan and Shinche are a real eyesore, dressed like a couple of lowlifes, acting all smug as if they own the place. Both Song Yan and Shinche were good-looking, but the stunts they pulled throughout our 3 years of high school were utterly ridiculous. The studious kids in our class were ashamed to be associated with them. She didn't speak loudly, yet her words carried clearly to everyone present. Song Yan's face instantly darkened as she shot a venomous glare in our direction. So it's you two country bumpkins running your mouths. Can't stand to see me doing well, with a man who adores me, can you? Green with envy, aren't you? All that backbiting, but too cowardly to say it to my face. Pathetic. That last remark was clearly aimed directly at me. I've explained it many times. But Shinche's mother coming to the school to confront her had absolutely nothing to do with me, yet. Song Yan is convinced that I was the one who stirred up trouble and drove a wedge between them, causing Shinche to become homeless and preventing her from spending more money. From then on, she's seen me as a thorn in her side. Before, I was too busy with my studies to argue with her, but she took my silence as a sign of guilt. The girl next to her couldn't take it anymore and rolled her eyes first. Song Yan, get a grip, will you? What exactly are we supposed to be jealous of? That you're a violent maniac who found a fellow weirdo with a martyr complex who's willing to take a beating. Besides, Shinche's hands and voice are ruined now. His music dream is completely over. Hearing this, Shinche's face instantly turned pale. Song Yan, however, remained completely unfazed. Instead, she snuggled affectionately against his shoulder and declared triumphantly, so what if he can't be a singer? He can make a living off his looks. He's already got hundreds of followers on short video platforms. For all you know, there might be a talent scout among them who'll sign him. Once he debuts, people like you could work your whole lives and never catch up. Then she ordered Shinche, show them all your videos. Several wealthy women have said they want to be your sugar mommy. However, Shinche's expression didn't improve at her words. Instead, it darkened further. Stop messing around, don't make a scene in front of others. Unexpectedly, Song Yan flew into a rage, her voice growing even louder. What scene? You act like a total simp around me all the time. What? Just because when Xiaoxiao is here, you're suddenly embarrassed? You think I'm an embarrassment to you? Is that it? Shinche's face was a mask of restraint, his brows furrowed deeply. He was just about to open his mouth to explain. I stood up before he could, looking Song Yan straight in the eye. That's enough. This is a group trip, not your personal livestream. If you two want to fight, do it behind closed doors. Don't drag everyone else into it. With that, I turned to leave, wanting to find a quiet spot, but Song Yan stubbornly blocked my path, letting out a cold laugh. Who are you trying to fool with this holier-than-thou act? Don't think I don't know. Your diary is full of confessions to Shinche. You've had a crush on him since freshman year. So, Song Yan had known about my past feelings for Shinche all along. If it were the me from my past life, having my innermost thoughts exposed so bluntly would have left me too flustered to speak, fleeing in embarrassment, only to have Song Yan gossip and spread malicious rumors behind my back. But the reborn me wouldn't fall into Song Yan's trap. I responded coolly, what's the big deal? Is it strange to have had a crush on someone during adolescence? I didn't do anything wrong. You're the one breaking the law by casually snooping through someone's private things. Song Yan, let me tell you a basic fact everyone knows. A person doesn't only like one person in their entire life. And as for Shinche, I suppose you're the only one who sees any value in him to like him in the first place. Ignoring the look of shock and scrutiny Shinche fixed on me, I directly shook off Song Yan's hand and walked out. I walked over to the railing of the cruise ship. Quietly enjoying the sea breeze, the soothing sound of the waves and the distant white gulls flapping their wings soon calmed my heart. Shin-chae, however, came to my side and handed me a glass of juice. Song Yen just has a bit of a temper, you don't need to take what she said to heart. I apologized to you on her behalf. I didn't answer. Instead, I looked him in the eye and asked, is this the life you wanted? Are you happy now? He seemed not to understand. Song Yen is finally with you. Just as you wished. Are you satisfied now? A white gull suddenly landed between us, pecking at the wood shavings on the ground, and in doing so, seemed to peck open the secret we kept from each other. He paused for a moment before realizing what I meant. You too. I watched his stunned expression, which gradually overlapped with the face from my past life, but the Shin-chae of now, though he possesses the memories of that past life, is already a changed man in a changed world, no longer the arrogant, universally adored superstar. A moment later, he snapped out of it, I'm sorry, I was so overwhelmed by the news of Song Yan's death, blinded by hatred, and I just took all my emotions out on you, but none of this has anything to do with Song Yan, please don't blame her. I found it somewhat laughable. So, after all that rambling and beating around the bush, he was just afraid I'd resent Song Yan and seek revenge. I couldn't help but let out a soft chuckle, cutting off Shin-chae's incessant chatter. A sudden silence fell over the air for a moment. I took the initiative to speak up, saying, everything has changed. Our life paths are now two parallel lines that will never intersect. I won't go looking for trouble for myself, and I'd appreciate it if you all would go live the lives you claim to love. Just stop putting on a show in front of me. I always knew Song Yan was a handful. Just watching the two of them tangle and torment each other for a lifetime is satisfaction enough. Out of nowhere, Song Yan, eyes red, charged over and hurled a wine glass at Shin-chae, cutting his forehead. Shin-chae, how dare you sneak around with this slut behind my back? You should just die. I gave up so many men better than you for you. And this is how you repay me, with one punch. She made Shin-chae's nose bleed. Shin-chae remained silent, letting her vent. Seeing Song Yan fly into a rage, I quickly took 2 steps back, afraid of getting caught in her outburst. Finally, the teachers who arrived on the scene pulled them apart. Song Yan let out a scream, fainted, and was rushed to the hospital after bleeding was discovered. It was only then I learned Song Yan had been pregnant and had nearly caused herself to miscarry. I could only shake my head in disbelief. 9. The results of the college entrance exam admissions are out. My score was high enough to get into my first choice program, a top-tier 985 university right here in my city. All my hard work has finally paid off. Without the boost from his art, Shin-chae's grades were just barely enough to get him into a bottom-tier university. Song Yan was already struggling to get into a vocational school. Then, when they found out she was pregnant, they expelled her before the term even started. Now they really had to rely on Shin-chae to support everyone, but none of that had anything to do with me anymore. I was finally free of them and could pursue my own dreams. As a distinguished alumnus of the school, I was invited back to give a speech to the current students. I remember clearly that this opportunity was originally meant for Shin-chae, who got first place and was admitted to a prestigious music conservatory abroad. My parents were also in the audience, listening as I shared my study methods and the personal journey I've been on. Of course, in this life, Shin-chae would not be here. My mom had met Shin-chae a few times back then, when he was still my brilliant deskmate. She asked the homeroom teacher curiously, why isn't Shin-chae here? Did he not do well on the college entrance exam? Hearing this, the homeroom teacher let out a heavy sigh. She, too, had placed such high hopes in Shin-chae, yet, Shin-chae ended up disappointing them all. Upon learning that Shin-chae had chosen to throw his life away, all the parents present shook their heads in unison. What a shame, they sighed. I used to tell my child to look up to him as the top student, and now, my father, not wanting to dwell on the topic and upset the homeroom teacher further, stepped in to smooth things over. That boy Shin-chae really does have talent in many areas. Perhaps, through his own efforts, he can still find a different, better path in life. However, in this lifetime, there was no intervention from me. Shin-chae had no parents to support him. With injuries to his voice and hands, his youthful dreams were completely out of reach. The only wish that came true for him was being with the one he loved. To care for Song Yan, he had no choice but to shoulder the entire burden of the family himself. I heard that Shin-chae landed a job as a kindergarten teacher. He sang songs for the little ones and helped them settle down for their naps. It was a straightforward and easy job to pick up. With his attentive nature, The children all took quite a liking to him. Watching the children so full of life and energy, he began to look forward to the day he would become a father himself. 10. As for what happened after that, I threw myself into more advanced studies and never gave it another thought. As graduation approached, armed with the foresight from my past life, I started my own company. Within a few years, the company grew rapidly, and I became a respected and admired female industrialist. Then one day, I unexpectedly received an invitation to a high school reunion. Scanning the sea of faces, both familiar and vaguely strange, I noticed Song Yan and Shin Chae were conspicuously absent. Everyone was very warm and welcoming, but as we were catching up and exchanging pleasantries, the conversation inevitably turned to my love life. They all sighed, lamenting how this career-driven woman was so consumed by work that she had no time to think about settling down. My parents have also nudged me time and again, saying it's about time I found someone and started a family, but every time, I'd just be flipping through work documents, letting their words go in one ear and out the other. Someone in the room piped up, "Xiao Xiao, don't tell me you're still hung up on Shin Chae." I was caught off guard. My memories of Shin Chae felt like they were from another lifetime. Collecting myself, I let out a light laugh and said, "How could I be? That was so long ago. I'd practically forgotten all about him until you mentioned it." I hadn't heard anything about him in ages. In this life, he never debuted or entered the entertainment industry to become a top-tier singer who shook the music scene. He faded into obscurity, just another face in the crowd, the most ordinary of people. Oh, I just mentioned it in passing. I heard he's also starting a business and doing quite well. I thought you two might still be in touch. Shin Chae also possesses memories from his past life. If he had known the market trends in advance, he could have lived a stable life for sure. He's probably married to Song Yan by now, with a family of 3, right? Oh, you have no idea. Let's just drop it. You could talk about their drama for days on end, and it's just depressing for anyone else to hear. We're having such a good time today, let's not bring it up. Really, the classmate hastily changed the subject. 11. To my surprise, not long after the party ended, I ran into Shin Chae. My new business partner was a returnee from studying abroad. Missing the flavors of home, they chose a restaurant with a pretty good reputation. As I entered the restaurant, the wind chime by the door gave a gentle tinkle. It was an elegant and quiet place, and I quite liked the atmosphere. He was a refined and courteous gentleman, who pulled out my chair for me and took charge of ordering. He seemed genuinely invested in the project, which gave me some food for thought. A gramophone sat on the long table nearby, its song flowing quietly through the air and lulling me into a reverie. My thoughts, like a weightless butterfly, alighted on that sweltering summer of years past, back in my freshman year of high school. I was still new to the campus. After evening self-study, I somehow ended up in the equipment room and managed to lock myself in. To make matters worse, the school's power went out that day. In the pitch darkness, I was trembling with fear, huddled in a corner and crying. Just then, a figure suddenly darted past outside. I was nearly scared out of my wits, my face streaked with tears. That was, until a cool, clear voice came from outside. "Don't be afraid, it's Shin Chae. I forgot something at school and came back for it. I found you when I was passing by." The security guard lost the key to the equipment room, but he's gone to get a new one made. "Are you crying? Don't worry, I'm right here with you." Seeing that I was still sniffling, Shin Chae didn't say much. Instead, he sang a song for me. His voice was clear and warm, like an angel's, soothing my fear-trembled heart. True to his word, he stayed with me until security arrived, and later even walked me home. From that moment, the young girl's secret feelings began to stir. Despite everything that happened later, this song remains a sanctuary in my heart. Coming back to my senses, I noticed my collaborator was also listening to the song. After a moment, he smiled at me. "This song is quite niche. Its melody is gentle and soothing, with a real power to comfort the soul." I gave him a slight, understanding nod. "Xiao, it seems you really like this song too." I didn't deny it, a smile spreading across my face. "Yes, once, when I was in a dark place, someone used this song to see me through it." My counterpart raised an eyebrow, looking somewhat surprised. What a coincidence. It seems you and my friend are connected by fate." He had a real gift for music, but an injury robbed him of his singing voice. This song was his favorite. As it happens, this shop is his. I think the two of you would get along well. Following his gaze, I saw a man in a white shirt. He rolled up his sleeves and was pouring a latte art design. Shin Chae was still handsome, but his demeanor had grown much more weathered and mature. I wouldn't have recognized him if I hadn't looked closely. The collaborator greeted him cheerfully. He walked very slowly, and it wasn't until he was right in front of me that I noticed the little finger on his left hand was missing, but clearly, he didn't recognize me either and was still joking around with my business partner. "Did you come back this time to bring your girlfriend home? She's really beautiful, congratulations." My business partner laughed and shrugged. "Don't say that, Ms. Wen is exceptional. I'm afraid she's out of my league." Shinche's gaze returned to my face, but then he froze. After a long moment, he finally spoke, as if confirming, "Wen Xiaoxiao, I could only sigh at how small the world really is, and to think, we once said we never wanted to see each other again." But I didn't want to make the situation any more awkward, so I just gave a slight nod and said, "It's been a while." 12. Our business partner also looked surprised, but his good manners allowed him to quickly regain his composure. He excused himself to check out the dessert table nearby, giving us some space. Shinche sat down across from me. The first thing I said was, "Sorry about that, I didn't recognize you right away." I shook my head nonchalantly. "We've all changed a lot, it's only natural." For a moment, neither of us spoke, and the air grew still. After a long pause, he spoke up again. "So, how have you been lately?" "I'm good, how about you? Do you still enjoy singing?" "Once in a while, when I'm out with friends at a KTV, I'll sing a few songs. It's a shame my voice has been damaged for so long. It's beyond repair. I sound pretty awful now." I nodded, noting that he looked neat and had no visible injuries. "What about Song Yan? Is she busy worrying about the kids' schooling?" He paused for a moment before saying, "We never got married, and we lost the baby." It was as if a floodgate had opened. He poured out everything that had happened to him over the past few years. He attended the university he was admitted to through the college entrance exam, working hard on the side to make ends meet. He tried to ride the wave and start a social media channel, but Song Yan's reckless antics got the account banned. Money was tight, but Song Yan was never satisfied. Always demanding the most expensive designer brands, at the slightest upset, she would unleash all her fury on him. Even though he was at his breaking point, he still loved her deeply. But life isn't just about mutual affection. The daily grind and financial struggles are inescapable realities, and there was still the unborn child to consider. He had no choice but to borrow money and take out loans from every source he could find. But Song Yan was a bottomless pit, rapidly devouring everything and never satisfied. Unable to repay the debts, he was hounded by multiple creditors, and his mental state broke down several times. After his family found out, they contacted him with a proposition. They said that once Song Yan gave birth, if he would just commit her, with her violent temper, to a psychiatric hospital, they would pay off all his debts and even help raise the child. Of course, he refused to abandon Song Yan, left to shoulder the burden alone. He ended up having a finger chopped off by the loan sharks. Song Yan, however, acted as if nothing had happened. All she did was blame him for being useless and failing to provide her with a good life. She then dredged up all the old grievances again, saying she must have been blind back then. If she'd chosen someone else, she'd be living the life of a wealthy lady by now, not stuck suffering in a cramped rental with him. She looked down on him as a fool who couldn't make money. At this point, I couldn't help but sigh with regret. The phrase "beautiful beginning, bitter end" is truly dreadful. Everyone witnessed their passionate love in the beginning, yet it ended in such a chaotic and miserable mess. As our business partner returned, Shinche snapped out of his daze and abruptly stopped talking. Just as he was about to leave, Shinche called out to me. I turned around and saw him hesitating, his lips moving soundlessly before he finally managed to say, "I'm sorry. I truly regret all those outrageous things I did to you and the hurt I caused." Honestly, I had always wanted to ask if he regretted his decision, if he regretted giving up his future for Song Yan, but seeing him now, so weathered and wounded, I realized none of that mattered anymore. 13. After finalizing the deal with our partner, we each got busy for a while. It was during a casual chat that I finally learned the rest of Shinche's story. Originally, the two had planned to get married after having the baby. This was because Song Yan felt she wouldn't look good in a wedding dress while heavily pregnant. However, during one of Song Yan's episodes, she blurted out a shocking secret. It turned out that while she was dating Shinche, she had also taken up with an older man off campus. The two were involved, and she was stringing Shinche along solely to conspire with the other man to get their hands on his money. The man from outside the school tracked down Song Yan's home, intent on taking her and the unborn child away. Shinche, of course, would not stand for it. The aggressive man slapped Shinche to the ground and revealed that the child in Song Yan's womb was actually his. Shinche looked at Song Yan in shock and fury, only to find her completely unapologetic. Instead, she hurled insults at him. "You claim to like me, don't you? What's the big deal about you being the fall guy? Consider it an honor, you bitch. Do you have any idea what I've given up for you? I could have been a world-famous star. How could you do this to me?" Shinche was on the verge of tears. "What kind of delusional fantasy are you living in, you worthless piece of trash?" Blinded by rage, Shinche shoved Song Yan as she tried to flee, sending her tumbling down the stairs. A large pool of blood spread beneath her. She had lost the baby. Shinche was sued by a man and served a prison sentence. It was his parents who sold their property to bail him out. After his release, he seemed to have aged decades overnight. He returned home and spent a year in reclusive despondency. Eventually, he came to his senses. Starting from the bottom, he worked his way up, saved some capital, and began his own business. It's been a bumpy road all along. After hearing his story, I just thought it was utterly ridiculous, but they were all his own choices, and it's not my place to judge. 14. That was until I ran into Shinche, completely wasted, at the entrance of my office building. My first instinct was to ignore him, but then he lunged forward and grabbed my hand. "Xiao Xiao, I regret it, I really, really do. Only now do I realize how much you helped me by saving me back then. And I repaid your kindness with betrayal. Now I live in regret every single day. I was truly wrong. If none of this had happened, if it were like the last life where Song Yan died and no one came between us, could we have been together? Why couldn't you save me in this life? Don't you like me? I like you too. Xiao Xiao, be with me. Save me one more time, I'm begging you." His gaze held a mix of humility, pleading, and a faint glimmer of hope. Yet I pried his stubborn fingers open one by one, met his fragile stare, and said coldly, "Why should I pay for your mistakes? You made your own choices. And now, you're still trying to manipulate me, to make me feel guilty for not saving you in this lifetime." "No, that's not it," he stammered, flustered. I ignored his interruption and continued, "Do you really think this can undo the hurt you've caused? I did care for you once, but that's in the past. What I loved was the kind boy who kept me company in the dark of night. Not the person you've become, mired in your own misdeeds. A villain like you doesn't deserve a fairy tale ending." After hearing me out, he let go with a sorrowful look, his strength seeming to leave him as he slumped to the ground. On the winter night, the city lit up with warm, yellow lights. I didn't spare him another glance, striding off in the opposite direction. Leave all the unpleasant past behind, for a happy tomorrow awaits me. Story 2, Kuang Jing threw money at me, and I slapped him in public. I hate him for treating me like a plaything, but after I was murdered, he killed my enemy for me and committed suicide in front of my grave to show his love for me. Reborn back to the day they first met. He leaned against his Porsche and waved his credit card. 30,000, I'll buy you dinner. This time I sat directly in the passenger seat. Only 30,000, you have to pay more. 1. I died and my soul floated over the cemetery. Both my parents passed away, and I don't know who handled my funeral affairs. At the beginning, teachers, classmates from school, and friends from the welfare home came to see me. I longed to hear what happened to the 2 people who harmed me, but no one mentioned it. Later, it became quiet again. 2 months later, Kuang Jing came. He was one of what I call a pursuer. To put it nicely, he is a pursuer. But in fact he is the financial sponsor who wants to support me. I hate him very much. On the day of reporting for my junior year, Kuang Jing blocked me at the school gate. He drove a luxury car and stretched out his hand holding a credit card from the car and waved it around, as if giving me alms. "Su Wei, here is 30,000. I want you to have dinner with me." I turned and walked away, and he followed me in his slow car. Along the way, parents and classmates carrying luggage all looked at us. There were also parents who pointed at us and whispered to their children who had just started school, "When you go to college, you must study hard. If you need money, ask your family for it. Don't try to be like other rich men. Girls should love themselves." I felt ashamed and angry, with tears welling up in my eyes. As soon as he got off the car, I slapped him on the spot. "Kuang Jing, who do you think I am? Do you respect others?" Kuang Jing was beaten back half a step, with red marks clearly visible on his face. His eyes turned cold instantly. He pursed his lips and punched the car door. "Sooner or later you will beg me for help." I wiped away my tears and turned away. Later, Kuang Jing also harassed me, and every time I scolded him, I gritted my teeth and I once thought he would hit me, but in the end, he just said, "Sue, remember, except for me, no one in this world will be truly generous to you." What he said was too arrogant and fake, so I just ignored it. Anyone could be sincere except him. It was not until I calmed down and thought back to the days after his death that I realized that it was Guanxing who was truly generous to me. At that time, the dean had another heart attack and was sent to the hospital, and he had to undergo surgery as soon as possible. I spent all my time working, from 8 in the morning to 5 in the morning, sleeping for 3 hours and then getting up to continue. One time I came out of a KTV at 5 in the morning and was so tired that I fell asleep sitting at the door. It was Guanxing who woke me up. He stared at me quietly for a while, then he squatted down and looked me in the eye and said, "The counselor told me to tell you that if you don't go back to class, you will be put on probation." I rubbed my face and said, "Wait a little longer, until I finish my work today." Guanxing frowned, looking unhappy. "Are you so short of money?" I didn't say anything. Guanxing took out a card from his pocket and said, "Here." I immediately turned my head away. "I don't want your money. Can I eat you?" He sneered. "Don't worry, I'm not supporting you. I'm just borrowing you." "When will it be returned?" I asked. Casual. I lowered my head, hesitating whether to answer it. Guanxing's patience was clearly running out. He grabbed my hand and shoved the card into my palm. "You can consider other people's money, but not mine. You are like a stubborn donkey. You treat your self-esteem as a carrot and you can pull the millstone for your whole life." I clutched the card tightly. He doesn't understand that for me. Self-esteem is the only thing that I don't need to fight for. I can keep it just by persisting. I whispered, "I'll pay you back when I graduate and get a job." Guanxing stared at me for a few seconds and suddenly smiled. "Sue, you really have guts, too. It's a pity that I died before I graduated." "Is Guanxing here to collect debt from me?" He seemed much more haggard and had a little stubble on his face. He is different from the young man who was always well dressed in my memory. He sat quietly in front of my tombstone for a while, then took out a ring from his pocket. "I have seen that ring. He always wears it on his hand and never takes it off." Guanxing placed the ring in front of the tombstone, together with the flowers, then supported himself with his hands and looked up at my photo on the tombstone. "Sue, you are really stupid. You don't even know how you died, and you still need your man to help you find out. Whoever is my man, I will spit on him." I bribed those idiots with just a few bucks, and they finally ruled that you committed suicide, but it doesn't matter. Your man is more capable, and he avenged you. I'll make them pay you back tenfold for the blow you took." He laughed heartily, but the wind blew his hair into a mess, and he looked so lonely. "In your next life, I hope you can be born into a good family and not live such a hard life," he said softly. After Guanxing finished speaking, he took out a dagger from behind and stabbed it straight into his heart. No matter how much I cried and screamed, I couldn't stop the blood from gushing out. His lips moved slightly. "So, you are in so much pain." Guanxing fell in a pool of blood, dead. I cried bitterly and touched his eyebrows, shouting help again and again. "Please, someone can come and save him," but no one can hear my voice. 3. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing at the university gate. In front of him was Guanxing, who was holding a credit card and looked like he deserved a beating. At this moment, he had not yet been provoked by my attitude to the point where he was emitting a sharp and gloomy aura. Nor had he been tainted with the dejection and determination before committing suicide. He is still full of vigor and is a favored child of heaven, not a murderer. "Sue, here is 30,000. I want you to have dinner with me." Seeing that I was looking at him in silence, he added, "Don't rush to reject me." Without waiting for him to finish, I opened the car door and sat in the passenger seat. "Who said I was going to refuse?" Guanxing was stunned for a moment, as if surprised by my attitude, then he raised a playful smile and got back into the car. It was not until then that I realized that this was not a dream. I was really reborn. I leaned against the car window and could feel Guanxing observing me out of the corner of my eye. Now he doesn't know me. I agreed to get in his car so readily. He probably thought I was a gold digger, but if I were to live my life over again, I would definitely give it to him. In my previous life, in order to protect my ridiculous self-esteem, I made myself and the dean suffer too much. After I die, her illness will never be cured and she will have no choice but to wait for death. The person who had set his sights on me didn't dare to do anything to me at first because Guanxing was around, but when Guanxing's family went bankrupt and he was unable to take care of himself, and he gave up pursuing me, he started to pester me like a rat that had been lurking in the sewer for a long time and finally climbed out. Fortunately, God has given me another chance to correct my fate. Not only do I want Guangjing to live well, but the dean and I also want to live well. 4. The restaurant was chosen by Guangjing. The environment is fresh and elegant, and any dish on the menu costs several days' salary of mine. He was always so generous when pursuing people. Or maybe what seemed like a huge investment to me was just an ordinary expense to him. Guangjing looked at me straight, as if he wanted to see through my thoughts. Through the window, the evening sun shines on the side of his face, outlining a clear outline and a straight nose, making him handsome and sharp. Why did you agree to have dinner with me? He raised his eyebrows slightly, his tone full of teasing. Actually, Guangjing is quite good looking. I have always known that. It's just that he looks too frivolous, has an overwhelming aura, and does all kinds of things to harass me, so that this face makes me feel that he is just a playboy's capital for feasting and drinking, and he is just a beast in human clothing. It was not until the moment Guangjing fell in front of my grave that I realized that compared to that bleak and empty look, this aggressive and confident look was more familiar to me. It suits him better too. I'm hungry. I picked up the food seriously. The person opposite me started to look at me in a somewhat subtle way. I added, besides, you can earn 30,000 yuan for a meal. Why not agree? Guangjing's original teasing words were completely blocked. As if he didn't expect that a girl could talk about worshipping money so confidently, he showed a somewhat amused expression. Don't you really know why I give you money? Not only do I know, I'm going to agree. I said, but I have one condition. Oh, I want another 200,000. I'll be available at your service until you graduate, but we can't have any intimate relations. Guangjing laughed out loud. You mean, I give you money but I can't touch you? I know what I said is ridiculous. As expected, he leaned back on the sofa, his tone nonchalant but revealing a hint of contempt. Why do you think you are worth so much money? I said calmly, I'm just stating my conditions. You can of course call me a gold digger and then turn around and look for a prettier girl. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, but he didn't respond immediately, but I knew he would agree, because based on my understanding of Guangjing, he has had an unusual obsession with me since the first time we met, and my resistance and disgust made him determined not to give up. I don't think he really loves me enough to die, so maybe, my face is really attractive to him. Besides, 200,000 is just a drop in the bucket for him. Interesting. Guangjing finally put away his playful smile and looked serious. But I also have my own requirements. You say. He leaned forward slightly. You seem to have some misunderstanding about me. I don't have the dirty habit of supporting someone. I want you to be my girlfriend. Are you kidding? I couldn't believe my ears. He is clearly a playboy who changes his female companion every 3 months. But he pretends to be innocent in front of me, seeing me hesitate. Guangjing lowered his eyes and lazily turned his phone around, saying the same thing to me. I am just proposing my conditions. Of course you can refuse, but I will take back my loan. My heart tightened, and I remembered the pale face of the dean lying on the hospital bed when he first suffered a coronary heart attack. Okay, I finally agreed. 5. We agreed to be available at any time, and soon Guangjing asked me to meet him at the gymnasium. After I entered, I found a random seat and sat down. When I looked up, I saw Guangjing jumping up and dunking. He was wearing a loose short-sleeved white t-shirt and black sports shorts. When he jumped up, the corners of his clothes flew up, revealing half of his tight waistline. Good shot. Applause broke out all around. After landing, he turned around and ran back. And our eyes met from a distance. Guangjing stopped and wiped his sweat, then raised his chin towards me and said, "Classmate, can you pass me a bottle of water?" I stood up and took out a bottle of water from my bag, which he had specifically asked me to buy on WeChat, and walked over to hand it to him. The other people who were playing ball looked over in the direction of the sound. Someone whistled immediately, and someone else smiled meaningfully. Wow, Guangjing, you are so lucky again. Is this beauty a newcomer? Before I could react, Guangjing kicked me and yelled, "Are you calling me beauty? Call me sister-in-law." I was a little surprised that he would make it public. At the same time, I feel an indescribable shame about the word sister-in-law, as if a child is pretending to be an adult. The person who was kicked quickly changed his words. Others also noticed something. In their circle, girlfriend and lover are two different identities. They exchanged glances, and the nonchalant attitude on their faces changed noticeably. Guangjing walked over and lowered his head and asked, "I asked you to come and watch me play basketball, but why are you hiding so far away?" I didn't say anything and just stuffed the water into his arms. Guangjing's expression was calm. "Help me twist it." I just bumped my finger. Immediately afterwards, Mischievous boos came one after another. Oh. Jingji is pretending to be weak. So brother Jing is like this in front of his sister-in-law. Although Quangjing didn't show any expression, his eyes were drooping and he looked aggrieved. That's enough. I glared at him and said in a low voice, then unscrewed the bottle cap for him. Quangjing laughed. He then took it and tilted his head back to drink the water, with drops of water sliding down the corners of his lips and into his collar. Hey. I quickly pressed a tissue against his chest. What are you doing? It's all spilled. As soon as I finished speaking, Quangjing grabbed my wrist and pulled me forward, and my hand touched his slightly wet clothes. Seeing that the situation was not right, the others consciously went back to continue playing. He lowered his head with a smile, and whispered to the tip of his ear, have you touched enough? Do you want to lift it up and take a look? My face flushed. I retracted my fingers as if I had received an electric shock, and subconsciously shouted. Quangjing, this sentence doesn't sound like a scolding, but more like an act of coquettishness. I quickly stopped talking and glared at him, then met his triumphant smile. It's that familiar rogue face again. It makes me feel upset when I see it. Where's the agreed 200,000? When will you transfer the money to me? I said coldly. Quangjing's smile disappeared. He looked at me dimly. Are you so short of money? 6. After getting the money, I took the dean to the hospital for a physical examination as soon as possible. The dean was diagnosed with coronary heart disease a month earlier than in his previous life, so he was able to be hospitalized immediately and arranged for surgery. The director held my hand and trembled. His face was pale and his eyes were red as he said, Wei, what should I do? The operation will cost more than 200,000 yuan. How can I afford that much money? I put my arm around her shoulders, stroked her hands, and said, don't worry, Dean Mama, I have money. The dean turned to look at me in surprise and asked, you are still in school, where did you get the money? I won a prize from a big computer competition. The finals are in Beijing. I'm going to take a leave of absence to attend the competition the week of your surgery. I'll be able to pay off the surgery fee when I come back. This is the most reasonable explanation I can think of. In my previous life, I was indeed shortlisted for this competition, but I didn't dare to take a leave from my job at that time, so I missed the competition. The dean's eyes lit up, but then became filled with worry. That's not that much. As long as you make it to the finals, you can get at least 200,000 yuan. The big company also gives you a signing bonus. I took out my phone and quickly searched the news from previous years. Look. The senior who won the award last year went straight to this big company after graduation. In fact, the news on this page was 5 years ago, and there are no such large bonuses now. But the dean was presbyopic and couldn't see the words clearly. She just stroked the photo of the young man in a suit on the screen, and finally smiled. Our Weiwei has a promising future. Studying is really useful. If she knew that the child she was so proud of not only often skipped classes in his previous life, but also had terrible final grades and was almost on probation, but was eventually murdered, ending his short and miserable life, would she be disappointed? My eyes instantly turned red and I quickly lowered my head and pretended to look at the electrocardiogram. At the same time, long-term plans also emerge in mind. This time I have to participate in the competition throughout and get the prize money to cover the subsequent treatment costs. At the same time, I cannot fall behind in my professional courses in school to ensure that I can enter a large company after graduation. Just as I was thinking about it, my phone suddenly vibrated. I stared at the caller ID dear husband on my phone for a few seconds. Then I remembered that Quangjing forced me to change this before I left last time. What a bad taste. I walked to the stairwell and heard his lazy voice. Accompany me to the exhibition this weekend, not on the weekend. I have to accompany my mother to the hospital for treatment. The other party was silent for a few seconds, then asked, which hospital? I'll arrange for a doctor I'm familiar with to go see your mother. No, it's already been arranged. I slowed down my tone. How about next week? Quangjing sneered. Su Wei, I am your creditor now. You are not qualified to bargain. I looked at my reflection in the glass window. My face was pale but still attractive, so, as a girlfriend, can I request a date extension, boyfriend? There was a sound of something falling over the phone. The identity that I refused to acknowledge until my death in my previous life has now become my most convenient weapon. As expected, when Quangjing spoke again, his voice was tense. Forget it, this won't happen again. When I hung up the phone, I couldn't help laughing. It's easy to coax him too. It's just a girlfriend or something, you can't trust her. 7. On the day I had an appointment with Quangjing, In order to avoid being recognized by people at school, I got up early and dressed up. I braided my hair, put on a beret, and baggy overalls, and finally covered most of my face with a pair of big sunglasses. When we arrived at the agreed location, Kwang Zheng's expression froze for a moment when he saw me. "What kind of outfit is this, little painter?" I pushed my sunglasses up to ensure they wouldn't slip down. "Doesn't it look good? The main reason is that there are so many people at the exhibition and there's a chance that someone from our school might recognize it." Kwang Zheng laughed. "It looks good, but don't regret it in a moment." I'm still wondering what there is to regret, but when I went in, I saw that everyone was dressed up in jewelry and I became the odd one out. I thought today was an art exhibition or a photography exhibition. But it turned out to be a gaoju exhibition. I didn't explain my anger clearly, but I felt relieved again. I probably wouldn't meet my classmates here. After we sat down, the salesperson quickly brought over a batch of jewelry. Kwang Zheng pointed at me and said, "See if there is a style that suits her." The salesperson looked at me hesitantly, apologetically. "I'm sorry, Mr. Kwang. We don't have any styles suitable for children at the moment." I felt my face getting hot instantly. Kwang Zheng was also at a loss for words, and reached out to take off my sunglasses. "She is my daughter. I'm an adult." I interrupted him quickly, stopping his movements, lowering my head to hold my sunglasses, and doing it in one go. "But I don't like any of these styles. Please take them all off." Kwang Zheng's face turned cold instantly. As soon as the salesperson left, he asked with a stern face, "What do you mean? You don't want me to say you are my girlfriend?" I was a little helpless. "I am just your contracted girlfriend. There is no need to make it public. What if I run into someone you know here?" Kwang Zheng sneered. "You are considerate." After saying that, he suddenly stood up and walked out. I hurriedly chased after him and grabbed his arm. Before I could say anything, someone greeted me. Xiao Zheng. The middle-aged man who was walking towards him looked at Kwang Zheng with a smile. "What a coincidence, we meet here." I looked at this person silently. As if I had seen him somewhere. In a flash, an impression suddenly flashed through my mind. Isn't this the CFO Zhou Zhenhai who caused the bankruptcy of Kwang Group in the previous life due to financial fraud, hiding debts, and inflating profits? Kwang Zheng's address further confirmed my guess. "Uncle Zhou, is the company not busy recently?" "I'm not busy, so I took some time to accompany the one at home to pick out some jewelry." "What about you? Did you bring your girlfriend with you?" Zhou Zhenhai asked with a smile. Kwang Zheng curled his lips and smiled a little fakely. "She's just a junior." My mind moved slightly, and I quickly took his arm. "Uncle Zhou, he is joking. I am Kwang Zheng's girlfriend." She pretended to be innocent and smiled shyly. "I have long admired Uncle Zhou's insights in the field of digital transformation. My name is Su Wei, and I majored in computer science. This year, I was shortlisted for the finals of the college student competition. I hope to get an internship opportunity at Kwang's company after winning the championship." Originally, Zhou Zhenhai didn't need to bother with a small person like me. It was just because of Kwang Zheng that he put on a friendly smile. "Young people are really to be feared. Since Ms. Su has the ability to enter the finals and is Xiao Zheng's girlfriend, it must not be difficult for her to enter the company." As he spoke, Zhou Zhenhai took out a business card from the inside pocket of his suit. "We are currently building an intelligent financial system that needs talent. If Ms. Su wins an award, you can contact me at any time." I held the business card in my hand, my face full of surprise. "I heard that Kwang's company offers 5-digit salaries to interns. I'm really looking forward to it." After Zhou Zhenhai left, I carefully analyzed the conversation. The smart financial system he mentioned may be closely related to future data tampering. I had just revealed that what I am after is money. I don't know whether Zhou Zhenhai will use me in the future. If I can prevent the Kwang Group from going bankrupt, it would mean that I have repaid the favor of Kwang Zheng who avenged me in my previous life. Just as I was thinking about it, I heard Kwang Zheng sneer. "Su Wei, you are awesome. Didn't you want to make it public just now? Why, you changed your mind once you saw Zhou Zhenhai. Su Wei, when you took the money, you didn't say you would include my connections in the calculation." 8. Kwang Zheng was angry and didn't contact me for several days. I was busy preparing for the competition. The final was a team competition. I had joined the team that won the first prize in the national team competition in my previous life. I applied for a laboratory from the school and built models with them every day. He didn't call me, and I was happy to save time. After coming out of the laboratory, I went to the cafeteria to buy food and finally returned to the dormitory. As soon as the door was opened, 3 heads popped out from behind the bed curtains. "The food is here." "Oh my god, Wei Wei, you are so kind," the 3 women screamed. jumped out of bed, rushed towards me, and snatched the food from my hands. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your hard work. The meal money has been sent to the group. Wei Wei. Remember to collect it. In my previous life, in order to save money, I did not choose to live in the school dormitory. Instead, I lived in a staff dormitory outside the school, and I didn't know almost any of my classmates at school. As a result, when rumors spread that I spent a night with Kwang Jing and bought a Chanel bag, my classmates only whispered when they saw me and no one believed me. One time before class, I heard a few men and women in front of me discussing why I had a Chanel bag and still carried a canvas bag every day. A boy showed an unfathomable expression. You don't understand this. A canvas bag can attract more men. Chanel is for accompanying clients at night. How can you carry it during the day? TSK. It's possible. They suddenly realized. I sat in the back and was shaking with anger. So after my rebirth, I decisively chose to return to school and live there. This is also the reason why I don't want people at school to see me meeting Kwang Jing. At 6:30 in the evening, the four of us went out on time. Why do we have to attend evening self-study classes in our junior year? I'm so fed up, Xia Xue complained. Junjun agreed like a little chicken pecking at rice. That's right, I was quite happy. After all, I had many part-time jobs before and rarely had such a leisurely time to attend evening self-study classes. Huizi suddenly thought of something, turned around and asked me seriously, Wei Wei, has Kwang Jing looked for you recently? The report of what happened at the school gate that day spread throughout the school, and the three of them were no exception, so I spent a few minutes talking about my dinner with Kwang Jing, and frankly said that I had agreed to be Kwang Jing's girlfriend. It just concealed the fact that I borrowed 200,000 yuan. I was afraid of leaving them with the same impression I had in my past life, although now I really am after Kwang Jing's money. When you were away, the three of us discussed it carefully and we still want to remind you to be safe. Will a young man like Kwang Jing really have a healthy relationship with you? Huizi said solemnly. Yes. Junjun frowned. Her family was the best among the four of us. My parents took me to some places, and I met Kwang Jing there a few times. Although he looked quite impressive, few rich and handsome men would remain chaste. I heard that he was into cigarettes, alcohol and women in private. I feel a little guilty. This relationship is indeed unhealthy. It is just a transaction of money. As he was talking, Junjun suddenly pointed to the front and said, Hey, isn't that Kwang Jing? Why is his hand on a girl's shoulder? I looked over and saw Kwang Jing holding a girl and walking towards the school gate, saying something. The girl had big wavy hair and was wearing a mask, with smiling eyes. Xia Xue was furious. I'm going to kill this bastard. I was also a little surprised. After getting it, did Kwang Jing get tired of it so quickly? But I quickly stopped Xia Xue, who wanted to rush over to question her, and Junjun and Huizi also advised her to calm down. Let's go to class first. It's too late. As if he heard something, Kwang Jing looked back, wondering if he saw us. After sitting down in the classroom, Xia Xue crossed her arms and said coldly, You shouldn't have stopped me just now. I should have punched him in the head. He is my creditor. I can't bully him. I could only force a smile and say, maybe there's some misunderstanding. I'll ask him later. Junjun pouted. Not only did he get a great deal on a beauty like Wei Wei, but he even dared to put his arm around other girls in public. Xia Xue exhaled slowly and said, Wei Wei, you have to spend his money ruthlessly. Don't save money for him. What? Give him at least one of the two, money or love. Let him transfer 30,000 or 50,000 yuan to let me see his strength. Junjun and Huizi also nodded. I didn't expect to hear such words. I was stunned and lowered my head to ask softly, won't this make me look like a materialist? Tisk, if not money, what else do you worship? Are you asking him not to leave you? Xia Xue said with disdain. The dean called me on video before going to bed. I wanted to show some concern for her, but I laughed out loud when I opened my mouth. You're in a good mood. What happy thing happened today? She asked with a smile. I curled my lips and said, I made some good friends at school. 9. The WeChat message asking for information was never sent. I secretly thought that Kwang Jing would never give up. After all, he pursued me so fiercely in my previous life. But I didn't hear from Kwang Jing for several days in a row. And I tossed and turned in bed in the early morning. Yes, why was I so confident that Kwang Jing would always like me? Maybe you didn't really like me in your previous life. It was just an obsession. But is this obsession worth his death for me? This night is destined to be sleepless. But I didn't expect that Kwang Jing would come to block me at the entrance of the teaching building the next day. When when I walked towards him. He looked at me sinisterly, gnashing his teeth and saying, "Sue. It's really hard for you to coax people." I was speechless for a few seconds and apologized honestly. I was wrong last time. What did you do wrong? Kwang Jing was so angry that he ruffled my hair. Forget it, I'm in a good mood today, so I won't bother with you. Kwang Jing took my hand and said, "Come with me." As a result, he took many turns and drove the car directly to the door of a villa. There were 2 people standing in front of the door. The man was clearly Kwang Xinghong, the president of Kwang Group who often appeared in the news. The woman next to him turned out to be the big wavy beauty that Kwang Jing embraced that day. She turned out to be Kwang Jing's mother. Kwang Jing pulled me out of the car, and I was completely stunned. What kind of operation is this? How can I meet my parents directly? I had to force a smile and greet them. "Good evening, uncle and aunt." Mother Kwang held my hands and said, "Wei Wei is here. Are you hungry after class? Come in quickly. The yam and pork ribs your uncle cooked tonight look delicious. I wonder if it suits your appetite." My arms tensed instantly. Kwang Jing noticed it and pulled my hand away with a smile. "Mom, don't scare her." "Oh, you protect me very well." Kwang's mother glared at him, but there was no sign of anger on her face. Instead, she smiled more kindly. Kwang Xinghong laughed loudly, put his arm around Kwang's mother's shoulders, and led her to the door. "Come in quickly. If you don't come in, how can Wei Wei have the nerve to go in first?" After everyone was seated, Mother Kwang kept putting food into my bowl and asked me about my taste preferences from time to time. Kwang Xinghong does not look as serious as he appears in the news. Instead, he looks like a naughty boy, and his mother is even more gentle as water. During the meal, even though I had no idea about the etiquette of being a guest at the elder's home, they did not show the slightest displeasure. I thought I would be subjected to comprehensive questioning from Kwang Jing's parents, but I did not expect to be completely integrated into their family conversation. When I heard gossip about relatives that I didn't understand, Kwang's mother would explain it to me, just asking about my parents' health and learning that I grew up in an orphanage. Mother Kwang walked around half the dining table and gave me a tight hug, stroking my back with her warm hands. "Good boy. It must have been hard to get through these years." I stood rigid, my vision blurring out as I looked at the family portrait on the opposite wall. When he was a child, Kwang Jing was wearing a fencing suit and holding a trophy, with his parents standing on both sides smiling proudly. That kind of pure happiness was like a mirror, reflecting my scholarship application form that I could never fill out, growing up in such a family atmosphere. It is no wonder that Kwang Jing has developed such a confident and outspoken personality. It was almost 10 o'clock when Kwang Jing sent me back to school. I remained silent on the way back to the dormitory. As I was walking, someone grabbed my wrist. Kwang Jing looked down at me and for the first time, his voice sounded cautious. "Are you blaming me?" "To be honest, I don't blame him. I said I would fulfill my girlfriend's duties and be there whenever you call, regardless of the occasion. I'm just curious why you want to bring me to meet your parents, even though we just met." Kwang Jing was silent for a few seconds, then squatted down. "Come up." "What?" "I was afraid you'd run away." The street lights shone on his back, outlining the broad, straight lines like a reliable ship. I somehow got on top of him and put my arms around his neck. He stood up steadily and walked down the road with me on his back. The voice spread from the chest to the spine, and it returned to its usual arrogance. "If I don't block you today, are you going to avoid me for the rest of your life?" "No, it's obviously you who is throwing a tantrum," I stammered guiltily. "Don't think I don't know that you ran faster than a mouse when you saw me hugging my mom that day." "Why did you run?" He laughed, his Adam's apple trembling slightly beside my arm. "You thought I was cheating on you, and as your official girlfriend, you didn't even dare to come up and slap me." I felt like laughing. How could I be considered a real girlfriend? He suddenly lifted me up, and I was so scared that I hugged his neck tightly. "So now I'm going to put a stamp on it. Let my parents know about your existence. Let everyone in the school see clearly who your girlfriend is. And tell those who want to steal your girlfriend to get the hell away from me. The most important thing is to let your stubborn head see clearly that I am serious about you being my girlfriend. This is not a contractual girlfriend, and I am not just throwing money at you for fun." I opened my lips. I was used to Kwang Jing's explicit confessions in my previous life, so I interrupted him every time, which made him even more annoyed. Only this time, I could hear the affection and seriousness in his tone. A thought arose in my heart. "Sue, just accept this inexplicable love. There will be no next life to miss it." 10. Kwang Jing and I are 1 year apart. Kwang Jing is in the stage of preparing his thesis and doing internship, and usually does not live in school, so we only met when he called me, but from that day on, the relationship between us changed qualitatively. Guangjing picked me up from school every day and occasionally accompanied me in the lab to prepare for competitions. I no longer avoided walking side by side with him in school or having meals with him in the cafeteria, and I no longer refused to accept his red envelopes and gifts. As the competition approached, I had a meal with my teammates and wished them all the best. I drank 2 glasses of fruit wine during the meal. When Guangjing came to pick me up, my cheeks were already hot and my eyes were a little dazed. Guangjing held my waist with one hand and said with a faint smile, "Su Wei, do you still recognize who I am? I am your man." It sounds so familiar. I might be able to hold it in when I'm sober, but I really can't when I'm drunk. This time I can finally spit out, "Bah, I don't have a man." Guangjing held me tighter and laughed, with a hint of ruffian in his laughter, like a stubborn donkey, because the restaurant was near the school. Guangjing parked the car at the door and walked with me back to school. The street lights cast the silhouettes of falling leaves on the wall. I was lowering my head and stepping on the fallen leaves when Guangjing suddenly grabbed my wrist. "Look at the wall." I turned my head and saw our overlapping shadows there. He moved closer to me, so close that the ends of my hair could brush against his eyebrows. "Look, do the shadows look like they are kissing?" I looked again and it was clearly overlapping, not 2 complete shadows at all. Nonsense. I turned my head to argue, but bumped into his face which was so close to me. When my lips touched the warmth, the wind stopped. All I could smell was a faint scent of cedar on him, mixed with the aroma of the plum wine I had just drunk. "We're kissing now." Guangjing raised the corners of his lips triumphantly. With my lipstick mark still on his lips, I stepped back in a hurry. But my lower back hit his prepared arm. "You did it on purpose." "Yeah, I did it on purpose." He held my hand, intertwined our fingers, and continued walking forward. I was led by him for a few steps. A bitter taste rose up my throat, along with the questions that I hadn't asked when I was sober. I let out a deep breath. "Did you get along with the girls you were with before in the same way?" Guangjing was confused and turned to look at me. "What do you mean by this?" I lowered my head. "Nothing." Guangjing lifted my chin and looked me in the eye. "You seem to have a lot of misunderstandings about me. Why not ask me directly?" Before I could say anything, he answered my question. "I have never put any effort into pursuing other girls, so I won't be like this when I'm with them. They," I muttered, "have quite a lot of love experience." Guangjing was amused. "Are you jealous?" "I don't know, I just wanted to scratch Guangjing." So I actually grabbed his hand and started scratching it. Suddenly I heard him say, "You can't expect someone who has never been in love to be good at it." I have been in love many times, but you have to know that I also have a lot of experience in love. He lowered his head and held my hand that was tickling him. "I have 10,000 ways to love you now." My heart moved. Then his drowsy brain became clear for a moment and he shook his head again. "No, the way you love is wrong." 11. Guangjing was stunned, but I said calmly, "You offered me 30,000 yuan to have dinner with you the first time we met. You flirted with me in public at the gym to test my limits, and you even met my parents without consulting me in advance. I can understand these, but I don't agree with them. Perhaps you are used to using money to solve everything, or perhaps many people came for your money, so you think that on the day of the report, you pay the money and I provide the people. This is just right, right?" Guangjing shook his head, his voice a little hoarse. "No, I'm sorry. If I reject you, you will be shocked and furious. How could a girl in this world reject your money?" Guangjing tried to refute. "I didn't." "You did," I said firmly. "Unfortunately, I really lack money in this life, and I succumbed. Therefore, this relationship has been unequal and unfair from the beginning. You and I must be in a relationship dependent on money. Our relationship must have a price tag. Most importantly, my voluntary behavior under the pressure of survival is not true freedom of choice at all." Guangjing's grip on my hand kept tightening, and his Adam's apple rolled rapidly. "What I am talking about are topics that his circle has never touched upon or thought about, but what I want is for you to bend down and look at me with equal eyes." I touched the corner of his stiff lips with red eyes. "Like now, you will panic because of my tears, you will be at a loss for what to do because of my words. Instead of always being able to easily settle everything with money, money can't buy my love, but respect can." Suddenly, I remembered the scene in front of the KTV at 5 in the morning in my previous life. At that time, Guangjing seemed to have learned to respect. I just missed it, but it doesn't matter. Guangjing will understand it earlier in this life, because he bent down, rested his head on my shoulder, his chest against my chest, and the violent beating of our hearts seemed like some kind of swearing ceremony. 12. Because I was drunk, I was a little late when I arrived at the classroom the next day. As soon as I sat down in the seat my roommates reserved for me, I heard whispers of discussions from the front row, which drilled into my ears like a poisonous snake spitting out its tongue. I guess he was sent back by that guy again. I heard he comes back very late every day. I heard she was working part-time. It seems like she worked several jobs a day during her college years. You believe this? Didn't you see how much the shoes she's wearing cost? And the car she drove last time was a Porsche. TSK. It's hard to say what kind of part-time job she has. Shashua suddenly threw the book on the table, and the thermos fell to the ground. The loud bang made the classroom quiet instantly. She stared at the two boys in front of her. Why are you talking so excitedly? Are you sharing your experience in treating hemorrhoids? The boy's face suddenly turned red. Junjun patted the Saint Laurent tote bag in front of her and said, "Are you making a fuss about a pair of shoes worth thousands of dollars? The drawstring of my bag is enough to buy all your clothes, if you ask me. Instead of staring at your female classmates' shoes, why don't you change your torn socks first?" There were bursts of suppressed laughter in the classroom. Another boy stiffened his neck. "Why are you pretending to be a rich and beautiful girl? You are still a hangout." Speaking of defamation, Wheezy picked up her phone and read aloud in a stiff tone. The criminal law stipulates that if someone openly insults others or fabricates facts to defame others, and the circumstances are serious, he shall be sentenced to fixed-term imprisonment of not more than 3 years. The surveillance cameras in the classroom have a recording function. Now we can call the police and collect evidence. Now all the students dared not say a word. "Don't." The boy pressed Wheezy's phone hard, his hands shaking. "Can we apologize?" "Sorry." I stared blankly at the 3 girls who were standing up for me, and thought of myself in my previous life who was condemned by thousands of people. It turns out that the feeling of being protected by friends is like suddenly entering a hot spring in the cold winter, making your eyes wet. After class, Kwang Jing called to pick me up. Shashua grabbed the phone and answered, "Mr. Kwang, your girlfriend was bullied in the classroom." After I got in the car, Kwang Jing put his hands on the steering wheel and drove for a while before asking, "Tell me, what happened just now? Were you bullied?" "Fine." I paused, then told him everything. Someone was talking about the two of us, and they said something unpleasant. Then repeat to him what the 2 people said. "Who said that?" "Bring your man to meet him." His face was cold and hard, as if he was going to kill the person who spread the rumor. I quickly touched his hand to comfort him. It's only natural for me to spend money on my girlfriend. Besides, who would be so aggrieved to have a girlfriend who doesn't like to spend money? She's like a eunuch who visits brothels with money but no use. I was amused by his strange metaphor. 13. I was going to Beijing to participate in a competition this time, and Kwang Jing sent me directly to the airport. After reuniting with my teammates, I waved goodbye to Kwang Jing. Before the plane took off, I had a video call with the dean. I promised her that I would come back with the bonus on the day of her surgery, just like in the previous life. Our team still won the first prize with our excellent work. My personal points ranked first, and I received olive branches from many big companies present, but I only had one company in mind. Zhou Zhenhai, as the company representative, came on stage to present the award and handed the crystal trophy to me. "Congratulations, Sue. The internship offer from Quan Group will be sent to your email soon. I would also like to thank Mr. Zhou for the opportunity." I raised the trophy to block the live camera. "I am very interested in your company's intelligent financial system construction." On the return flight, I repeatedly stroked my bank card. Soon, 30,000 yuan would be deposited into the card, enough to support the dean's next operation. The moment the red light in the operating room went out, the surgeon took off his mask and smiled, which made me burst into tears as I threw myself into the arms of the awakening dean. The smell of disinfectant mixed with the saltiness of tears was the breath of life. For the first time since my rebirth, I felt that my destiny was in my own hands, so I made a decision. After Kwang Jing came to visit the dean, he was worried that I wouldn't get enough rest, so he booked a room in the hotel opposite the hospital. I curled up on the sofa and looked up Zhou Zhenhai's biography on the computer. The bathroom door opened, and Kwang Jing came out wiping his hair, with water droplets sliding down his abdominal muscles into the bath towel around his waist. He came over and took my hand. "Let me test my recent fitness results." Seeing that the atmosphere was getting bad, I quickly held his wrist. "Why, don't you miss me?" He smiled and kissed the side of my face, his minty breath sweeping through my hair. My heart was beating a little faster. "Kwang Jing, if I say I died once, would you believe me? He paused and blinked his wet eyelashes. What nightmares have you had recently? Next May, I was murdered on my way to my part-time job. 2 months later, you avenged me and then committed suicide in front of my grave. I touched his ribs. I was floating in front of you at the time and watched you die with my own eyes. His body temperature was transmitted to my fingertips, and I seemed to be able to clearly feel the non-existent scar. Kwang Zhang's expression gradually froze, his Adam's apple rolling up and down. Where was I when you got into trouble? 14. He believed it so quickly that I was a little caught off guard. Before I got into trouble, your family had already gone bankrupt and was being besieged by creditors. I looked at the mist in his eyes. So don't blame yourself. The most important thing you need to know is that it was Zhou Zhenhai's financial fraud, hiding debts, and inflating profits that led to the bankruptcy of the Kwang Group. I said. I applied for the winter vacation internship at Kwang's group and have received the offer. Zhou Zhenhai has agreed to let me work on the intelligent financial system construction project. I can use scripts to analyze the underlying data of the system, but if I want to retrieve the log of the modification record, I still need your permission. Kwang Zhang suppressed his emotions and looked serious. Zhou Zhenhai gave up a high salary in the United States and joined the newly established Kwang Group. He attracted a lot of investment for Kwang Group. My father trusted him very much and gave him a lot of power. In other words, Zhou Zhenhai can make full decisions on budget approval and fund allocation without going through my father's hands. We both realized the complexity of the matter, and it was far from being solved just by knowing who the culprit was. Moreover, data retrieved without authorization may not be accepted by the judiciary due to procedural violations. Kwang Zhang pondered for a moment, and finally said, I will discuss this matter with my father, but I am afraid that Zhou Zhenhai has not made any move yet. My father can only keep an eye on him for the time being. I still have to rely on you to compare whether there are any abnormal transaction patterns in the system. I don't know how Kwang Zhang can convince Kwang Xinghong to be on guard against Zhou Zhenhai without revealing my rebirth. When I entered the company as an intern, it was the busiest month for annual reviews. I worked with the project team for a month and finally waited for Zhou Zhenhai to meet me alone. After he called me to his office, he casually asked me, Xiao Su, how is your relationship with Xiao Jing lately? Is it going well? In order to avoid suspicion, I deliberately did not let Kwang Zhang pick me up and drop me off at Get Off Work. It seems that Zhou Zhenhai has been misunderstood. I smiled and said, we broke up a long time ago. You know Kwang Zhang. He changes people faster than he changes cars. Not sad. Zhou Zhenhai's eyes flashed with a shrewdness. I looked relaxed. Oh, there's nothing to be sad about. Besides, I got a lot of things. After saying that, I pretended to be happy just thinking about it, and I smiled even more brightly. Zhou Zhenhai also smiled, looking nonchalant, and changed the subject naturally. The marketing department needs to compare the transaction data of overseas subsidiaries in the past 3 years. And we need your help to process it. This is considered as extra work for you, so don't worry, we will give you a big red envelope before the new year. Remember, Zhou Zhenhai raised his eyes. If anyone asks, just say you are sorting out expense reimbursement documents. I showed an understanding expression and immediately bowed. Thank you, Mr. Zhou, for your trust. He turned around with a smile, his palms full of cold sweat. Zhou Zhenhai began to act. 15. I provided the system data. And Kwang Zhang also collected sufficient external physical evidence. What happens next is not something I can interfere with. It is said that Kwang Xinghong urgently convened a closed-door meeting of the audit committee, avoiding Zhou Zhenhai's attendance, and launched an internal investigation. At the same time, a legal forensic team was hired to submit a complete chain of evidence to the Economic Investigation Department. Eventually Zhou Zhenhai was arrested and imprisoned. After this incident, my internship ended. My teammates who participated in the competition planned to start their own business and invited me, so I joined. During this period, the director's second operation went smoothly. The doctor said that as long as he took the medicine every day, the possibility of recurrence was very small. Everything is settled. When I graduated, I paid back 210,000 yuan to Kwang Zhang including principal and interest. Kwang Zhang did not refuse, but instead heaved a sigh of relief. Damn it. This deal is finally over. He took my hand and tried to kiss me. Baby, now we are both free, come and kiss me. My mind was racing and my hands were flailing around involuntarily. With a bang, Kwang Zhang was stunned. This was the first slap he had ever received in his life. I almost forgot to give it to him. Kwang Zhang was shocked and angry. You I pinched his face and pressed my lips against his. You can kiss me now. End of text. Extra, previous life situation, 1. No one believes in love at first sight anymore. Quangjing didn't believe it either, so when he saw Suwei at the school gate, he handed out a credit card through the car window without thinking. In his mind, love and affection are all empty words. He never lacks, but is also stingy in giving. Only real money can exchange for real beauty. But Suwei really stumped him. She wanted nothing but dignity. Suwei said that he only liked her face, not her as a person. And she needed the minimum dignity as a human being, so no matter whether Quangjing was gentle or persistent towards her, whether he invited her to dinner or bought her gifts, she refused them all. It nearly drove him crazy. A friend advised him, "This woman is stubborn and needs to be punished. Wait for me to find someone to punish her. I guarantee she will come to you and beg you." Quangjing pushed him away irritably, holding the wine glass, his eyelids drooping casually. His sight fell on the first floor of the bar. Suddenly, a figure moved among the crowd. Quangjing put the wine glass on the table and strode downstairs to chase after him. It was not until he grabbed the person's wrist and pulled her in front of him that Quangjing realized that this girl looked 80% similar to Suwei. Even their height, figure, and body shape were very similar, but it wasn't Suwei after all. He suddenly understood, it has to be her, it can only be her, he likes this person. Regardless of anything external or internal, what kind of love was this? Quangjing himself was not sure, too, but before he could sort out his feelings, his family was on the verge of bankruptcy. Later, Quangjing also harassed me, and every time I scolded him, I gritted my teeth and I once thought he would hit me, or, either this person is busy today, or that person will refuse tomorrow, at a party. Even those who used to be fawning and bowing to him and often asked him to do things for them dared to fight with him in public, and were beaten by him so badly that they could not get up. At 5 o'clock in the morning, Quangjing walked out of the door holding his breath. I just happened to see Suwei, who was so tired that she was sitting at the door of the KTV and sleeping. He stood in front of her and looked at her for a long time. It was very cold and she was shivering even in her sleep. "It's all like this, why are you still unwilling to accept his money?" Thinking of this, Quangjing woke her up. When I looked down at her, she looked small and fragile. He frowned slightly, somewhat unwilling to see such a scene, so he squatted down and looked at her at eye level so that he could see her eyes clearly. After that, in order to solve the mess at home, Quangjing never looked for Suwei again. The next time we heard from her, she had been murdered. 3. Originally, Quangjing also wanted to take formal channels to bring the criminals to justice, but he came to the cemetery every day to inquire, only to find out that in the past week, no one except him had come to visit Suwei, but the girl he liked just died. Quangjing's eyes felt very sore, so not long after, he raised his knife and came to Suwei's grave. It was the first time he saw her smile at him. What a beautiful smile. Quangjing took off the ring on his hand and placed it in front of her tombstone. This was the day he came of age, and his parents melted their engagement rings into a new ring as a coming-of-age gift for him. They said, "Thank you for being our child." Now, he gave her the ring. I wish she has parents by her side and a lover who loves and respects her. And they may never see each other again, maybe see you in the next life. Story 2. I died 7 times. Each time, I died on the day my husband proposed divorce. He didn't love me. Our 7-year marriage crumbled in the face of his returning first love. The system told me that if I wanted to live, I had to outdo the first love. Miscarriage, being a stand-in, framing, my methods became increasingly vicious. However, when this path was finally approaching its end and the success rate of saving my marriage reached 99% I took the initiative to hand over the divorce agreement. 1. When signing the divorce agreement for the 7th time, a needle-like numbness suddenly spread from the tips of my fingers. Gu Jingshan looked out of the window and urged indifferently, "Jiangwan is waiting." He was even too stingy to look at me again. He didn't know that every second I delayed was borrowing time from death. I coughed softly. Extremely weak from the miscarriage, I spoke in a very soft tone. "Is there really no room for change? I've said that I can accept you having another family outside, or Jiangwan can be the de facto legitimate wife. I can go abroad, go anywhere, just don't divorce me." I looked up at him, my eyes hot, my lips trembling slightly. "I love you, Jingshan." I had said these words countless times in countless tones, but never once managed to move a man who didn't love me. Gu Jingshan lowered his eyes and looked at me, with only a glimmer of pity in his eyes. Shinjaoi, stop pestering me. Success rate of saving the marriage, 29%. The words of the system appeared in front of my eyes again, a sharp pain burst in my heart without warning. I clutched the bedsheet tightly, my face pale, and pleaded incoherently, the child, for the sake of the child. I carried her for 5 months. Our child had already taken shape. Gu Kongwen pushed me down. Just 1 day ago, she was still safely in my belly, my most well-behaved daughter, who never gave her mother any trouble, my only unborn family member. How long are you going to make up stories? Kongwen said that you fell by yourself, and my husband watched coldly. He couldn't see my pain. Now there was only an eternal void in my abdomen. 72%. The alimony I give you is enough to ensure that you have no worries about food and clothing for the rest of your life. Gu Jingshan lowered his voice and made a cruel conclusion about my miscarriage. It's a good thing for her not to have to grow up in a family without love. Besides, her mother is such a shameless woman. I looked at him with red eyes, having no more tears to shed, and he picked up the divorce agreement. The obsidian cufflinks glinted coldly. Those were the gift I gave him on our wedding anniversary. Perhaps he had long forgotten. I murmured in a low voice, I've already lost the child, and she's going to take away my husband. She doesn't know about this. Gu Jingshan's face suddenly turned stern. If you dare to tell her. Yes, if Jiangwan knew about this, as kind as she was, she would definitely be ashamed, blame herself, and cry her eyes out, making him extremely heartbroken. She was clearly the shameless mistress. 1%. The numbness in my fingertips had spread throughout my body. I reached out to grab his sleeve but missed. I rolled off the bed and fell with a loud thud. The throbbing pain in my heart became more and more intense. I curled up in pain, my temples soaked with cold sweat, unable to say a single word. Don't imitate her when she has an episode. Gu Jingshan's voice seemed to come from another world. This man I loved deeply had obvious disgust in his tone. The tip of his shoe was only half a step away from my twitching fingers, yet without the slightest hesitation, he strode away briskly. 0%. That row of blood-red numbers trembled violently for a moment and then returned to 0. I struggled to crawl towards the French window, my nails breaking, leaving streaks of blood on the carpet. Through the window, I saw my husband walking towards another woman. He slightly lowered his head, his eyes full of gentle attachment. The sunlight left a halo on the iris. This was the last scene. My vision darkened, and I waited for death to come. Last time it was carbon monoxide poisoning. The time before that was a car accident. This time it was probably death from a broken heart. I had personally proven 7 times the fate of dying a violent death if I divorced Gu Jingshan. 2. When I opened my eyes again, unsurprisingly, I was lying on the marital bed with Gu Jingshan. The curtains were tightly closed, and the room was dim. The bedside clock showed April 20th, Wednesday, 15:10. I'm back again. I silently recited the system data in my heart, and a line of white characters appeared in front of my eyes. Success rate of saving the marriage, 33%. I picked up my phone listlessly, unlocked the screen, and browsed my mailbox and social accounts. In the chat box with Gu Jingshan, there were only my one-sided greetings. As for my social account for 7 years, I used it to post daily life and random thoughts that no one cared about. It was just a product of loneliness, and only one zombie follower would like each post. But this was better than confiding in my husband, who was like a valley without an echo. In the latest post, I recorded going to Kyoto to visit a retired craftsman to customize cufflinks for Gu Jingshan. In the post, I couldn't hide my excitement. After all, that was his favorite craftsman. He liked them so much that he wore them every time he signed the divorce agreement. Today is my wedding anniversary with Gu Jingshan, and it's likely to be the last one. Everything started before this rebirth system began to operate. Jiangwan returned to the country. Gu Jingshan, regardless of our 7-year marriage, resolutely divorced me. I walked out of the house in a daze and was hit and killed by a truck speeding through the rain. When I opened my eyes again, I returned to before the divorce. I had liked Gu Jingshan since I was 17. This was the only thing I could do and the only thing I would never give up. Heaven was playing such a trick on me. Perhaps it was giving me a chance to make him truly love me, but how can I save a man determined to divorce? I've tried almost all the methods I can think of. I updated a post, turned off the screen, and let out a deep breath. I walked into the kitchen, took out various ingredients that Gu Jingshan liked from the refrigerator, and had just put them in the sink when I stopped. I still remembered that I started making dinner at this time back then. But he didn't come home until the food was completely cold. Gu Jingshan had completely forgotten about the anniversary. At that time, I was really disappointed for a while. What's the point of doing these things as usual now? Just then, my phone rang with a notification. There was a new private message in my mailbox. Assistant of Professor Jiang. Have you considered consulting a professional? A professional. 3. I decided to give it a try. The counselor was an eloquent and intelligent-looking handsome guy, wearing a pair of refined thin-rimmed glasses. It was said that he had a doctorate in psychology and held a teaching position at a well-known university. To save this marriage, in the previous 7 failed attempts, I had tried almost everything, but he proposed the view of self-improvement, which I had never thought of. It was already pitch black outside. Without accident, Gu Jingshan would be home in 15 minutes and tell me that he was canceling the upcoming vacation plan. I knew the reason all too well. Jiangwan was going to return to the country. As for the anniversary candlelit dinner, I had ordered takeout from a star-rated hotel. It was already plated and looked perfect. The car lights illuminated the front yard, and the sound of a car driving into the garage came from downstairs. Gu Jingshan was home. I put on the most beautiful silk dress and sat at the candlelit dining table waiting for him, and my husband, who had no romantic cells, turned on the chandelier, loosened his tie with one hand, and asked coldly with his handsome face, "What are you doing? Today is our wedding anniversary." I propped my cheek with my hand and looked at him. He was looking for an excuse. Today I know, an emergency shareholders meeting. I was understanding. Gu Jingshan frowned and didn't speak. He took off his coat, washed his hands, and then sat across from me at the long dining table. We ate quietly at a distance. As expected, he didn't notice anything wrong. I pushed the cufflinks in the exquisite gift box towards him. "A gift for you." They were carved from obsidian and suited his temperament very well. Of course, Gu Jingshan hadn't prepared a gift for me. I knew this very well. He lowered his eyes to look at the things in the box and thanked me. My husband was always cold, and it was impossible to tell where his heart lay. A long time ago, I thought he was like this by nature. Later, I found out that he was only like this towards me. "Tomorrow I'll ask my secretary to take you shopping." "No need, I have an appointment tomorrow." Gu Jingshan paused and looked up to examine me. This was very unusual. After all, since I married him, I had no social life outside the family. "One more thing," he continued. "The vacation is cancelled." I had excitedly planned this Roman holiday for a long time. Gu Jingshan and I didn't have a honeymoon trip. In the 7 years of our marriage, this was the first time we were going to travel together. Just like truly loving partners. "It doesn't matter. I don't need to refund my plane ticket." I cut a piece of steak and said, "I have an old friend in Rome. I'll just go and have a get-together." Sure enough, a look of surprise appeared between his brows. The numbers jumped. Success rate of saving the marriage, 36.5%. I was secretly surprised in my heart. Professor Zhang's consulting service was actually useful. The first step of self-improvement, learn to refuse. As for the second step, it was cheating. 4. Saying it was cheating didn't mean actually cheating, although my lecturer said that it wouldn't be a bad idea to make a false show into a real one. Once your availability decreases, your charm will increase accordingly. The core of this step is to create a sense of urgent competition. After all, men are animals who love to chase. I took notes and casually asked, "Professor, can I ask you out to cheat tomorrow?" Professor Jiang smiled very gracefully on the screen. "It would be my pleasure." The next day, I didn't go home until late at night. I chose the bar that Gu Kongwen often went to as my cheating location. He liked his sister Jiang Wan. Since he was a child, he had decided that she was his sister-in-law and couldn't stand me the most. In the previous cycle, he even pushed me, who was pregnant, down from the second floor of the old house. If he found out that I was having a tryst with a man, he would definitely inform Gu Jingshan immediately. I took off my windbreaker and turned on the light. The light suddenly illuminated the figure sitting alone on the sofa. If I hadn't been prepared, I really could have been scared sick. Gu Jingshan looked at me and asked in a flat tone, "Do you know what time it is now?" 2 o'clock in the morning." I looked at my watch. "Where have you been?" There was an undercurrent surging in his tone. "At a bar." I said it with full confidence. "Come here." "Oh." He used an order tone. I carried out the order perfectly. I threw my bag aside and enthusiastically sat on his lap. Jing, Shen. I knew very well that I was carrying the smell of another man. Jiang Zhihui had good taste in this regard. The three-piece suit of an academic, the woody perfume of a gentle scum, and the thrilling contrast when he took off his glasses. Gu Jingshan also smelled it. He slightly turned his face away and looked at me coldly. "What did you do?" I put my arms around his neck. got closer, and lied without blinking. It was just a high school class reunion, didn't I tell you? In my social circle, no one knew about my marriage to Gu Jingshan back then. The family forcefully separated him from Jiangwan. Jiangwan didn't care at all and left chicly. He then married me, who had no background, out of revenge. My mother-in-law's compromise was, family scandals should not be made public. I was not allowed to claim my identity as the daughter-in-law of the Gu family outside. As for him himself, I was not a partner worthy of boasting. As a result, he naturally never showed up in front of my friends. They didn't know I was married and even introduced a boyfriend to me. I really couldn't so I had a couple of drinks with him. Gu Jingshan's brows twitched slightly, and displeasure was written on his face. Just as he was about to say something I laughed drunkenly, left a bright red lipstick mark on his cheek, and got up to leave. I'm going to take a shower, you should go to bed early too. Success rate of saving the marriage, 41%, as soon as I entered the bathroom. Jiang Zhihui sent a message, I'll pick you up on Sunday. 5. I had always been unconfident about my appearance. There were no shortage of beautiful faces around Gu Jingshan, not to mention how radiant that first love, Jiangwan, was. In the 7 years since I married him, he had never expressed any appreciation for my appearance as if he had in other aspects. I examined my face. According to Professor Zhang's suggestion, I changed my hairstyle. My long hair was permed into soft curls. I also changed my daily dressing style on Sunday. In front of the mirror in the fitting room, Jiang Zhihui stood behind me on the side, both of us gazing at the completely new woman in the mirror. He said that if my husband was still unmoved, I might as well turn to other options. Sorry, Professor Jiang. I looked into his eyes and replied ruthlessly, I'm not going to divorce, the two are not in conflict, the professor said. Behind the lenses, he blinked. Gu Jingshan was indeed a bottomless abyss of darkness. But if I fell into the hands of this fox, I would be eaten without even the bones left, being caught in a death loop. It's better not to create more trouble for myself. I gave him a fake smile. I'll consider it, as if I had the life to consider. 6. Previously, Gu Jingshan simply ignored the changes in me. At that time, according to online tutorials, I bought a wardrobe full of marriageable style clothes. Not only was I completely ignored by Gu Jingshan, but Gu Kongwen also said that I looked like a moving wedding arch. This time, things changed. I no longer sent him messages, no longer ironed his suits, no longer waited anxiously with a table full of food, no longer invited him to fulfill his husbandly duties, no longer obeyed him in every way and was overly cautious. He actually wanted to take me to a gathering of his childhood friends. In countless previous cycles, I could only stay at home alone or cook for them in the kitchen. This time, I was dressed up beautifully and stood side by side with him in front of the door. A well-known playboy among the friends looked me up and down, his eyes seemingly hooked, and said with a smile, sister-in-law is getting more and more beautiful. The hand he had around my waist suddenly tightened a bit. If it were the me from before, I don't know how overjoyed I would have been, but at this moment, I reflexively checked the system data. Success rate of saving the marriage, 47%, very good. Very good, Jiang Zhihui. It was like I had been given a shot of a cardiac stimulant. During the following gathering, I exerted all my efforts to exude charm. Self-improvement was not just about superficially enhancing one's appearance. With the help of Professor Jiang, I crammed all kinds of knowledge about high society and Gu Jingshan's industry. I studied as hard as an examinee, often memorizing books until late at night. Naturally, I no longer had time to be his full-time mate as I used to. Hard work pays off. Finally, I was able to join in their conversations. Speaking of which, before marrying Gu Jingshan, I was actually a talkative person. I had even forgotten that myself. Amid the flattery and attentiveness of a group of wealthy young masters, Gu Jingshan drank casually while looking at me, his eyes very deep. 7. Only when I actually did it did I realize how easy it was to arouse a man's jealousy. Recently, the frequency of my meetings with Jiang Zhihui was getting higher and higher, not to mention the exchange of messages. It wasn't just about classes or things related to Gu Jingshan. More often, it was just chatting. He spoke with a faint sense of black humor, which I really liked. After reading the latest message, I couldn't help laughing and replied while tapping on the phone screen. Gu Jingshan put down his knife and fork, and the cutlery made a soft clinking sound. I didn't even notice when he got up and walked behind me. How could that be? Everything was within my plan. He propped one hand on the edge of the table and leaned down halfway, almost enveloping me in his arms. Who is it? Just a friend I met a few months ago. I said without changing my expression. Last time I had hypoglycemia on the side of the road, and he was kind enough to take me home. Friend. Gu Jingshan gently repeated the word. Was it him at the bar that day too? Yeah. Why didn't you call me? I hesitated before answering. I did, you said you were busy. Gu Jingshan was silent for a moment. I shook the screen in front of him, with a little excitement in my tone. Jingshan, we made an appointment to go to the movies next week. It's that one you said you weren't interested in before. I'll go with you. I loved watching movies and had worked in the film industry before getting married. But Gu Jingshan always thought that watching movies was a waste of time. Maybe he would be willing to watch them with Jiang Wan. For the people we love, we always feel that we haven't wasted enough time. And now, the phone vibrated, and Professor Jiang sent another message. Same place again. Gu Jingshan took the phone from my hand, looked at me with deep eyes, and sent a voice message expressionlessly. I'm Xin Zhaoyi's husband. There's no need to contact her anymore. He deleted and blocked the contact in one go. I stared at him with wide eyes. Jealousy and possessiveness were important components of love. Could it be that Gu Jingshan was really about to fall in love with me? The stock market was falling all the way, but the success rate of saving my marriage climbed to a new high in history, 67%. The day when Jiang Wan returned to the country was finally approaching. 8. The thing about Rome was just a lie. How could I have friends in Italy, even if I did? I wouldn't miss this most important time point. Before, I had tried various ways to stop Gu Jingshan from going to pick up Jiang Wan at the airport. For example, begging, going crazy, faking illness, puncturing the car tires, and even deliberately breaking my own arm. None of them worked. This time, I would face it head on. Now I was no longer the Xin Zhaoyi who only knew how to endure. I hired a professional styling team and put on the most expensive high-end custom-made suit. The person in the mirror was polished to perfection. Even the stylist couldn't stop praising. Miss Shen is just like a female celebrity. Since I was like a female celebrity, I would go with the mentality of outshining others. I took Gu Jingshan's arm and stood at the airport pick-up gate, with my neck straight, as if I were under the curtain of an award-giving ceremony. My handsome co-star looked down at me and tucked the curly hair beside my ear behind it. 67.5%. My confidence had never been so high, nor had my heart rate. From a distance, I saw Jiang Wan at a glance. She was tall and very conspicuous in the crowd. Her experience of living in the Americas had made her cut her hair short, and her skin had also darkened a few shades. Her image was almost unkempt. She had no makeup on, dressed extremely simply, and the lines of her arms exposed outside the white t-shirt were tight. With obvious signs of exercise, after 7 years, she was completely different from how she was in college. Gu Jingshan least liked this type of woman. He had always liked women who were delicate, charming, mature, and feminine, like Jiang Wan 7 years ago, and like me. Jiang Wan was getting closer and closer, and her eyes were very bright. At a certain moment, I felt that she was an approaching comet. For some inexplicable reason, static electricity kicked in, and the hairs on my body stood up. She walked towards us. The words of the system appeared in front of my eyes. Success rate of saving the marriage. I stared fixedly at that line of numbers, and my heartbeat was deafening. Change, quickly, prove my success. Change quickly. The numbers trembled and changed violently, leaving afterimages as if there was a system malfunction. After what seemed like a century, it was finally readable again. 33.5%. Wait a minute. There must be something wrong with the system. My face turned pale, and in an instant, cold sweat seeped through my temples. The makeup powder congealed and flowed down like lead-colored blood. Gu Jingshan stared fixedly at Jiang Wan. It seemed that nothing could make him look away anymore. My numbers jumped again. 3.5%. It turned out that just one look at her was enough for me to face complete failure. 9. I opened my eyes. Defeat was like a mountain collapsing. This time was not very different from before, except that the way it ended was much gentler. There was no entanglement, no miscarriage, no hysterical farce. Gu Jingshan was a generous husband and naturally a generous ex-husband. We could be said to have a peaceful breakup. After all, I had been completely devastated by the blow. If it weren't for the extremely bloody death CG, I would even feel that this was an acceptable ending. Yes, I could accept divorce. Loving Gu Jingshan was the only thing I had been able to do so far, but it was no longer something I would never give up. Because Sisyphus' boulder had already broken my hands, I slowly got up from the bed. Death seemed to have brought some kind of change. I felt a tired black hole appear deep within my body. I picked up my phone. As soon as I opened the social platform, I saw a middle-aged woman kindly imparting marital wisdom to the camera. Sometimes the problem doesn't lie with your loved one or the third party, but with yourself. I couldn't help laughing. What nonsense. In one of the previous cycles, I had even bought her courses. If the problem was with me, my smile suddenly froze. The problem, indeed, lay with myself, because I had completely misunderstood one thing. Gu Jingshan was doomed not to love me. 10. In the previous 8 cycles, I had been going around in circles, hitting the iceberg, and sinking the ship on the wrong route. If I had to say, among all the bad ideas I had adopted, the worst one was being Jiang Wan's stand-in. There was no more imitation show than that. I searched for all the information related to her, hired a private detective to investigate her privacy, and even watched the videos of her that Gu Jingshan treasured over and over again. She was a well-known musical genius. I had also learned the piano for a few years, so I practiced hard the piece she played on stage when she first met Gu Jingshan, until my fingertips became calloused. I realized the gap between people. The piano teacher praised me a lot, but I knew in my heart that I couldn't even reach 1% of her standard. When she talked, her eyes always stared at people intently, shining like stars. I practiced my gaze hard, even signing up for several acting training classes until Gu Jingshan would be in a daze when looking into my eyes. She was tall with a very beautiful waistline and had been scouted to be a model. 7 years later, even without any makeup, she still stood out from the crowd. Since my natural conditions couldn't be changed, I secretly went to a private hospital to have my ribs removed while Gu Jingshan was abroad attending business activities for several months, making my waist a full circle thinner. When the stitches were removed, I looked at the blue-purple area on my ribs in the mirror. I thought I would cry, but my eyes just burned red. Your waist. On the night he returned from abroad, Gu Jingshan hugged me from behind and asked in a low voice, "Why has it become so much thinner?" At that moment, I suppressed the strong urge to retch for no reason. Needless to say, the ending of a fake was that I was smashed to pieces by the hammer on an antique appraisal show. I had thought about becoming Jiang Wan, but I had never thought of another possibility. There was clearly a correct solution to my marriage crisis. If he could only love Jiang Wan, then I would ruin Jiang Wan. 11. Jiang Wan was very friendly to me. Maybe she was like that to everyone. Gu Jingshan held a welcome-back dinner for her and booked the best French restaurant in the city. She didn't seem to have a good appetite and didn't eat much. When we were parting in front of the restaurant, her stomach rumbled embarrassingly twice, so I suggested that she come home with us, and I would cook some supper for her myself. Gu Jingshan, who was already reluctant to part, naturally couldn't wish for more. Jiang Wan hesitated for a moment, and under my calm and sincere gaze, she finally nodded. I cooked, and she insisted on helping. Rather, she was more of a hindrance. This woman was proficient in all kinds of arts, but she was extremely clumsy when it came to cooking. Coming from Suzhou and Hangzhou, she had a light taste, so I carefully washed the vegetables, scrambled the eggs, and cooked a bowl of fragrant water shield and whitebait soup. Jiang Wan stood very close to me. I could almost hear her swallowing saliva. My goodness, it smells so good. I haven't eaten this for 7 years. Just like that, she walked into my hangmen banquet without any precautions. I said lightly, "It's ready," and picked up the bowl. She happily reached out to take it. At the moment of handover, I deliberately let go of the bowl. The bowl suddenly overturned, and the steaming hot soup splashed over. Her hand immediately blistered red. This pain was nothing to someone who had died 8 times, so the cry of pain that escaped my mouth was completely acting. Jiang Wan was startled, and Gu Jingshan also came over when he heard the sound. He quickly glanced at the messy floor and took my wrist to rinse it under the faucet. "I'm sorry," Jiang Wan's voice sounded from behind, weak and lacking confidence. I didn't hold it steady. "Where's the first aid kit?" "No, I'd better call an ambulance." She was really making a big deal out of nothing. I held back my tears, raised my wet eyelashes, and looked at the silent Gu Jingshan. "It's okay, Miss Jiang didn't mean it." In the end, we still called an ambulance to deal with my burn, taking up medical resources. After Jiang Wan left, I deliberately behaved very unnaturally. When going to bed, I even turned my back to Gu Jingshan, lying very far away from him, which was very unusual. "What's wrong?" he finally asked in a low voice. I didn't say anything, just made my shoulders tremble as if I were crying. "Tell me." So I sobbed realistically. "Miss Jiang said this was a lesson for me." Gu Jingshan was silent. I then checked the system data. A quarter of an hour later, just when I thought he had fallen asleep, my success rate increased by 10 percentage points. 12. That day, Jiangwan added my contact information and forwarded nearly a dozen blog posts related to burns that night. A few days later, before I even had a chance to go to her, this stupid woman actually came to apologize on her own. She was carrying gift bags in both hands. After putting them down, she went to the car to get some more. It was really exaggerated. I casually inspected the gifts: burn ointment, scar removing gel, a beautiful atlas of geography, a bowl exactly the same as the one that was broken, and compared to them, rather rough-looking baked cookies. There was also a silk scarf. Jiangwan said that the dress I wore when picking up the plane was very beautiful. At that time, she was thinking that it would match such a pure white silk scarf very well. In the last box lay a simple, shaped wooden carving ornament. It was a souvenir made by the children themselves when she was volunteering in South America. I said gently, "I like them so much. I want to put them in the bedroom, but these are too many. I just got a minor injury. You don't have to take it to heart. Today is also your birthday," Jiangwan said. After a pause, she added, "Actually, I saw you at this time last year." Last year, she saw me. I came back to deal with some things and only stayed for 2 days, so I didn't tell anyone. It was around 11:30 at night. I passed by that convenience store on the corner and saw you sitting alone in front of the glass, eating takoyaki. There was a cream cake in front of you, and there was also a birthday candle stuck in it. I originally wanted to knock on the glass and wish you a happy birthday, but I felt that you probably didn't want to be disturbed. I froze in place. It was a stormy night. Gu Jingshan said on the phone that he had to fly to Hong Kong temporarily. The convenience store clerk sold me the last expired cake. The cheap cream had collapsed into a mess. I ate the takoyaki, and my tears kept falling into the soup, because of the long death and rebirth in between. For me, even the dampness on my face that night was already a very long ago thing. I was silent for a long time until Jiang Wan's eyes became worried. "Can Miss Jiang help me take this up?" I said. "This wooden carving." She looked down at my right hand wrapped in a bandage. Of course. 13. The steps of the old house creaked under our feet. Jiang Wan, holding the wooden carving, walked in front of me. Her short hair swayed and brushed against the back of her neck. "Jiang Wan," I called her. She turned around. "I'm sorry. I really meant it. I'm sorry." A somewhat puzzled expression froze on her face. I let go of the handrail and rolled down the stairs amidst Jiang Wan's scream. In the dull thud of the back of my head hitting the floor, I vaguely heard Gu Jingshan's voice. "How long are you going to make up stories? Kongwen said that you fell by yourself." "Yes, I did have a miscarriage once. I was pushed downstairs and could only desperately and hopelessly protect my bulging belly. I was like a kicked-down dog, lying on the ground, begging my husband's dear younger brother to call an ambulance. That time was real, but in Gu Jingshan's eyes, it was just a lie." I punctured the blood bag I had hidden in my pocket beforehand, in Jiang Wan's disbelieving eyes. A pool of bright red blood slowly seeped out from under me. Gu Jingshan was at home today. Naturally, he didn't remember my birthday and was just having a video conference in the study, and this time, when he walked out of the room, he happened to see the lie I had carefully prepared for him. The victim was still standing dumbly at the top of the stairs, looking at me with a pale face. The wooden, carved bird in her arms had fallen to the ground and broken in half. At the end of the day, in his arms, I cried bitterly. The child, Jingshan, the child, 14, I had already bribed the doctor, and he would give Gu Jingshan a flawless miscarriage report. I was lying on the hospital bed, staring straight at the light green painted ceiling of the hospital. Only the bruised forehead and leg bones were still aching faintly. Through the wall, there were faint sounds of an argument. I pulled out the indwelling needle in my left hand, got out of bed, and limped out of the room. The voices were Gu Jingshan and Jiang Wan. They were talking in the empty ward next door. "Why did you treat her like this? I don't love her at all." Gu Jingshan's voice was suppressed with anger. I leaned against the cold wall. Surprisingly, I felt no waves in my heart about the fact that Gu Jingshan had said. Jiang Wan smiled softly. "Have you ever trusted me even a little?" There was a moment of silence in the room, and the door suddenly opened. Not surprisingly, it was Jiang Wan carrying a bag. Jiang Wan took a deep look at me. I looked back at her. Now, the urge to retch welled up in my throat again. "Love means nothing to you, but Jiang Wan, without him, I will die. I will really die. Everything I did was just to survive. I was so disgusting." The nurse pushing the dressing change cart was walking towards us. Jiang Wan passed by her, and her figure disappeared at the end of the corridor. I thought I would never see her again in this life, but there was a sudden rush of footsteps behind me. It seemed that I wasn't the only one who realized this. Gu Jingshan chased after her. The corner of his clothes brought up a gust of wind. He pushed aside the dressing change cart blocking the way. The bottles and jars clanged, attracting a sharp rebuke from the nurse. He didn't see me, but I saw him clearly. On that face was an expression of blankness due to anxiety, an expression of wanting to save something. An expression I had never seen before. 15. I opened my eyes and touched my neck. It was intact. This system, fate, or whatever it was, had a great imagination for ways of death. So far, there had been no repetitions, but the track of the small ball rolling remained unchanged, diving towards the fated ending. I was invited to play this pinball machine that could never be won, even if I was the completely innocent victim in the script. Gu Jingshan would break through the shackles of morality and run towards his beloved, if I end my life before the divorce. Can I welcome eternal peace? I began to seriously think about this question. On the social platform, the kind-looking woman said, "A child is the crystallization of love and the bond of a family. With a child, a man will eventually return to your side. This is the power of life." The phone was lying beside me. This half-minute video was playing on loop. The fluorescence illuminated the dark ceiling, like a scene from a horror movie. Gu Jingshan was a fortress that I couldn't conquer. Pregnancy, miscarriage, and even suicide were all useless to him. The so-called power of life only Jiangwan would dash. Wait, only Jiangwan would. 16. Let's go to Sangala. I held down Gu Jingshan's hand that was starting the car. I suddenly want to eat whitebait soup. Jiangwan, who was fastening her seatbelt, paused for a moment. Gu Jingshan also glanced at me through the rear view mirror and slightly frowned. I've already made a reservation dash. I want to eat it too. Jiangwan sounded very happy, just like that night. It's been 7 years since I last ate it, so he changed the route. At the dinner table, I listened silently to their chat, until I finished the last sweet soup, wiped the corner of my mouth, and then calmly announced, "Actually, I have something to tell you today." I took out the forged medical report from my bag, placed it on the table, and pushed it towards Gu Jingshan. "I have cancer." The porcelain spoon fell into the soup bowl, and the splashed juice spread on Jiangwan's cuff. There was a moment of silence in the private room. Gu Jingshan flipped through the report, and his pupils trembled slightly. "It's in the late stage. The doctor said I have at most 2 years left." I smiled easily. "Anyway, I'm a dying person. I'll let you two be together." After saying that, I stood up. "I'm going out for some air." I waited outside for 10 minutes. When I came back, as expected, I heard the two of them arguing. Gu Jingshan said in a low voice, "I'll arrange the best medical team for her. You can't punish me with her condition. Not just for this reason. Don't you understand yet? I didn't come back to get back together with you. Besides, you're incredibly cruel and selfish." My husband was silent. Jiangwan's evaluation of him must have been a blow to his heart. The success rate of saving the marriage increased by 20%. I laughed coldly. It was a bit too easy. 17. As I had imagined, Jiangwan didn't leave. Instead, she volunteered to stay and take care of me during my illness. I didn't have any illness at all. It was all a conspiracy with the doctor, the same doctor who forged the miscarriage report in the previous cycle. His name was Li Jin. He was a top student with a gentle and refined temperament. He looked more like a good person than that Professor Jiang. As soon as he saw Jiangwan, who accompanied me for the re-examination, his eyes lit up. I knew what that signal meant. Sure enough, Li Jin started to pursue her relentlessly. Actually, I didn't think much of him, but from the way he looked, it seemed that he was sincere. After a few months of coming and going, Jiangwan actually started dating him. Gu Jingshan naturally also learned about this. He turned the page of the book calmly, but the corner of the page was crumpled. I lay down and pretended to be weak to brainwash him. I've never seen Miss Jiang smile so happily. As long as she can be happy. My husband was silent, lonely, and lovelorn on this night. I reached out from under the quilt, unceremoniously turned off the light, closed my eyes with my back to him, and a sweet smile hung on the corner of my mouth. After all, my success rate had just soared. 18. I held the straw and slowly stirred the fruit and vegetable juice in the cup. The green color was smeared on the cup wall, swirling into a shallow arc. The plan this time was just one word: delay. In other words, it was like boiling a frog in warm water. Once Gu Jingshan was cooked, he could no longer jump out of this pot. So far, everything was going smoothly. The success rate of saving the marriage in the system had reached Shinjiaoi. Jiangwan propped her cheek and looked at me. "You look at the upper left corner from time to time. I've been wondering, Is there something there? My hand paused, the stirring straw scraped against the cup wall, making a slight sound, and my breathing also stopped. After 9 cycles, this was the first time someone had asked me this. Actually, I've always been a bit jealous of you. She suddenly smiled. This was simply a fantasy. You're very smart and very tough. Well, of course. You're also very gentle, Jiangwan said softly. You have all the things I don't have, smart, strong, gentle. She actually had such an idea, and your eyes can speak. Many times, I feel that you can understand what I'm thinking. She looked at me with those bright eyes. Do you know that? It's you who don't know, Jiangwan. You don't know what a selfish and sick person you're facing. A person who just wants to survive and thus resorts to any means. Who can only monitor, calculate, and manipulate everything around her. And who can only take advantage of your kindness. A person who wants to live so much that she wants to die. I couldn't speak for a long time, and just at this moment, a familiar figure walked past the glass window, with a lover snuggling beside him. Jiangwan had her back to the window and couldn't see. I stared fixedly at that figure and suddenly stood up. Jiangwan, wait for me here. I'm going to the bathroom, Jiangwan said from behind. There's a bathroom in the store but I had already walked out quickly. 19, on the street, Li Jin's hand was on the girl's shoulder. The two were very close, as if there was only each other left in the world. I caught up with him and blocked their way. Li Jin, he was slightly stunned, then frowned, and his eyes dodged for a moment. Mrs. Gu, what a coincidence. Who is this? I motioned to the young girl beside him. If Jiangwan finds out, Li Jin sighed impatiently and said coldly. We've broken up. What? Broken up? Why didn't Jiangwan tell me? Why did she break up with you? He seemed to have heard a ridiculous question and sneered. Jiangwan has congenital heart disease. She actually told me so late. What if it affects childbearing in the future? My family has had only one son for 3 generations. Slapdash. There was a crisp sound. My palm hit his face hard. I was so angry that my voice trembled. Who do you think you are? How dare you treat her like this? He was slapped and turned his head, glaring at me with a mixture of shock and anger. Covering his face, I coldly turned to the girl who was so frightened that her face turned pale. Did you hear that? If you're still a woman, dump him. Then I clenched my still slightly trembling and numb palm and turned around without looking back and left. When I returned to the coffee shop, Jiangwan was holding a mug, sipping hot cocoa, and there was a circle on her upper lip. There was a beautiful booklet on the table. You were gone for a long time. Actually, there's a bathroom in the store. She pointed to the pictures of the scenic spots in the brochure and smiled. Do you want to go hiking tomorrow? Didn't Li Jin say last time that you need more exercise? Of course, if you're tired, I'll approve taking the cable car. I looked at her and slowly understood. She didn't want to affect my remaining happiness, my marriage that had brought happiness to no one. 27 years ago, when I was still in love with Gu Jingshan, there were a lot of obstacles. Jiangwan mentioned him in front of me for the first time as we walked up the long mountain path. This topic should have been a forbidden zone for us, like the flood blocked by an artificial dam. Although we couldn't see it, we knew clearly that it was waiting to destroy everything, and now the embankment was loosening, and a trickle of water was flowing out. We agreed to elope abroad, but on that day, he didn't show up. I couldn't contact him and thought there was some accident, so I went to the Americas first to wait. It wasn't until I heard about his wedding that I realized I was dumped. My pupils trembled slightly. I didn't know that the original version of the story was like this. In my imagination, Jiangwan was the one who proposed to break up, went overseas, and left everything behind. Jiangwan continued calmly. At that time, I left everything and came to a foreign country, only to face such an ending. I thought about cutting my wrists and secretly hated you, whom I had never met. Later, perhaps because I was afraid of death, I survived and found that I was living very well, better than before. Finally, I couldn't help but think about you. I wondered what kind of person Gu Jingshan's wife would be. Was she okay? My legs seemed to be filled with heavy lead water. I walked slower and slower until I stopped. Jiangwan walked up 2 steps, realizing that I wasn't following. She turned around and reached out her hand to me. Tired? Come on, I'll pull you. I held her hand. Her palm was warm and dry. I always eat dinner alone, I said abruptly. Really? Her voice had a slight smile. So do I. I watched Roman Holiday 3 times in one day. Yeah, last summer, I drove around the coastline all night. There was only one song playing on the radio. I bought a pair of studded boots and never wore them once. Mine was a knitted short sleeve. I could never find the right season for it. I couldn't help laughing. then I noticed that something in my heart suddenly fell gently with a thud, and then I finally could admit that when I was in love with him. He and I were so far apart from each other. I shook Jiang-Wan's hand, like two high school girls. My steps gradually became lighter. I bought an online course on how to save a marriage. Save a marriage, yeah. I took out my phone and searched for it to show her. This person suggested that I be a submissive and virtuous wife. Listen to what she said. Jiang-Wan clicked in and watched a few videos, then turned it off, holding back a laugh. Absurd, right? I also consulted a psychology professor. I searched for Jiang Zhihui's assistant again, but his account was nowhere to be found. Did I remember the ID wrong, or was it a deviation caused by some kind of butterfly effect? It didn't matter anymore. I put this matter out of my mind. 21. When we reached the top of the mountain, the sun had already set below the horizon. Jiang Wan's smile was very dim in the night. Happy birthday, Xinjiaoyi. She took out a cake in a thermal box, a bottle of sparkling water tied with a beautiful ribbon, and 2 wine glasses. These were actually the things in the heavy backpack. I asked Li Jin, you can eat this, but no wine, let's use sparkling water instead. Actually, it's almost the same, right? I took off my scarf and put it on the cold stone, ready to use it as our picnic cloth, but a gust of wind blew it away. The navy blue scarf floated towards the purple night. Jiang Wan leaned on the railing and reached out to grab it. Suddenly, the wooden railing collapsed, and her whole body tilted towards the boundless night. At this moment, the system data that popped up occupied my entire field of vision. Success rate of saving the marriage, 99%, a series of blood red exclamation marks. Jiang Wan, the perfect Jiang Wan, the Jiang Wan who had overshadowed my marriage like a shadow, the Jiang Wan who I could never defeat no matter what. If she died dash, I grabbed her. The mountain wind howled, stinging my cheeks so painfully that I couldn't open my eyes. I could only hold her hand tightly, hold it firmly, and never let go. My eardrums throbbed, and my blood vessels were on the verge of bursting. I thought I was shouting, but in fact, nothing could come out of my choked throat. Using all my strength, I finally pulled her back. I staggered a few steps backward and slumped to the ground, gasping for breath. The taut string that had been stretched for a long time suddenly broke, and I couldn't help but burst into tears. Jiang Wan hugged me and patted my back. I'm sorry, I'm okay, she said. So, she didn't understand anything at all. I heard the sobbing in her voice, and warm, sticky liquid flowed down into my collar. Tears, no, something was wrong. I held her shoulders and pulled her away. Jiang Wan's face was deathly pale, her head had been knocked open by a rock, and a steady stream of blood gushed out, staining her forehead and cheeks. Her sad eyes were like stars immersed in a blood mist. 22. Jiang Wan was unconscious in the hospital, and I submitted a divorce agreement to Gu Jingshan. As long as I can start over, she won't really die, right? Love rival. This is the most incompatible relationship between women that ordinary people can think of. However, I don't want Jiang Wan to die. I left the hospital and wandered the streets, waiting for my death. What kind of death would it be this time? Surprisingly, I no longer felt afraid. It was a bit of a surprise that it didn't end immediately. Early the next morning, before it was fully light, Li Jin called. Gu Jingshan had been looking for me all night, contacting major hospitals, hotels, transportation hubs, and even calling the police, which led to the exposure of the fact that I had faked a cancer report. He would definitely sign. I ate the birthday cake that Jiang Wan had put in a thermos box, swallowing the cream in big mouthfuls. Sitting on the embankment, I watched the city slowly wake up in the rising sun. On the other side of the river was my school. Behind the glass building that shone brightly in the morning light was my old home that had been demolished. I recognized all the memories. Before falling in love with Gu Jingshan, before marrying Gu Jingshan, the trace of that me had become so faint that it was no longer visible. It turned out that Xinjiaoyi had already died before entering the cycle. Why did heaven make me start over again and again? Perhaps because I made mistakes again and again. 23. I woke up again, April 20th, Wednesday, 15:10. I made a sumptuous dinner for myself, and the cufflinks were put up for sale in the second-hand market, fetching a considerable amount. When Gu Jingshan came back, I had already gone to bed, in a half-asleep and half-awake state. He approached with the moisture from the shower, kissed me on the ear, and asked in a low voice, "Are you angry?" I opened my eyes and stared at him for a long time. His long, slender eyebrows, drooping, moist eyelashes, and eyes with a faint glimmer like obsidian. In his gradually puzzled expression, I smiled without any burden. None of this mattered anymore. Whether it was my marriage or the death that followed, this was not laziness or depression. On the contrary, I felt that every inch of my body was full of vitality, as if I had never lived before. In Jian Zhihui's course, there was such a lecture: 10% of life is what happens to you, and the other 90% is your reaction to it. Then, this rebirth system where divorce means death has, in a sense, become immortality for me now. 24. Early the next morning, I contacted Song Rong, a former classmate and colleague. She still worked at M.W. Production Company and had been promoted to the position of Project Development Manager. I expressed my intention to return to the workplace to her. She was very pleasantly surprised and gave me an internal referral quota. It was settled just like that. I sent a text message to Gu Jingshan, briefly informing him of the situation. He didn't reply. At night, Kongwen and Mom will come to stay for a few days next month. Yeah. My eyes never left the screen, and the keyboard clattered as I prepared for the written test. Songwen's birthday, you make preparations in advance. Okay, don't make mistakes at the family dinner. I've already prepared the gift. You just say it's your thought at that time. Yeah, Shinjiaoi, what did I just say? I came back to my senses, like a middle school student being called by the teacher, blinking at him guiltily. Gu Jingshan sighed. I can't figure out the meaning of you going back. You don't need money, and you're not at an age to fool around anymore. I need money, I shrugged, and I'm immortal. This wasn't nonsense. How much do you need? He frowned slightly. I knew what he meant and just shook my head. I don't want yours, unless it's divorce alimony. It was a joke. I wouldn't live to receive the divorce alimony. But Gu Jingshan's face turned, and he had no sense of humor. 25. The written test and interview went smoothly. After 7 years, I returned to the workplace and did odd jobs under my former classmates. I felt very good. Even small things like ordering coffee were interesting to do. However, Song Rong seemed to be in some trouble. After several meetings, I understood that it was a problem with the script copyright. Copper Camel Lane was the swan song of playwright teacher Yutsen. Many film companies were fighting over it during this period. The threshold of her house had probably that time. Yeah, Shinjiaoi, what did I just say? I came back to my senses, like a middle school student being called by the teacher, blinking at him guiltily. Gu Jingshan sighed. I can't figure out the meaning of you going back. You don't need money, and you're not at an age to fool around anymore. I need money, I shrugged, and I'm immortal. This wasn't nonsense. How much do you need? He frowned slightly. I knew what he meant and just shook my head. I don't want yours, unless it's divorce alimony. It was a joke. I wouldn't live to receive the divorce alimony. But Gu Jingshan's face turned, and he had no sense of humor. 25. The written test and interview went smoothly. After 7 years, I returned to the workplace and did odd jobs under my former classmates. I felt very good. Even small things like ordering coffee were interesting to do. However, Song Rong seemed to be in some trouble. After several meetings, I understood that it was a problem with the script copyright. Copper Camel Lane was the swan song of playwright teacher Yutsen. Many film companies were fighting over it during this period. The threshold of her house had probably been trampled flat. The good news was that the copyright hadn't been sold to any company yet. The bad news was that M.W. had also been firmly rejected by teacher Yutsen. She said that today's young people lack attitude. Aren't we respectful enough? Do we have to kneel on the ground and beg her? The male screenwriter in charge of following up was very resentful. Can I try? I raised my hand. Teacher Yutsen was very difficult to deal with. The degree of difficulty was as high as her talent. I stayed up all night to read her swan song and was completely in awe. Copper Camel Lane told the story of a middle-aged woman struggling in the times, gradually losing her marriage, job, and friendship. The ending was that after a fatal betrayal, she held back her tears, raised her head, and walked towards the next battlefield alone and firmly. The rough, tough, and morally imperfect image of the protagonist had been lingering in my mind since that day. It took more than 5 hours to drive to and from the company and the teacher's hometown. As soon as teacher Yutsen heard my intention, she pulled a long face and refused to see me. I carried through the docility I had learned in marriage to the end and visited her unshakably. Finally, after being shut out for half a month, when she saw my face again, she snorted and turned around to go in. But the door wasn't closed, leaving a crack. There was a glimmer of hope behind the crack. Cold looks, it didn't matter. I had a thick skin. Sarcasm was even easier. When she asked me to take out the trash, I even cleaned the trash can spotlessly. While being docile, I couldn't forget to improve myself. she liked watching ball games, so I made up for the videos and memorized the knowledge points hard when she was watching the program. I casually commented a few words and received the look of "this little girl is actually a bosom friend." Another half-month later, our relationship had developed to the point where she invited me to watch the game with her. 26. It was already late at night. Song Rong opened a canned coffee and looked at me, who had just returned to the company and was half dead with exhaustion, half jokingly, "With your perseverance, you'll succeed in anything." She didn't know that compared to everything I had experienced with Gu Jingshan, these were nothing. "Only this ending isn't good." The male screenwriter sipped his tea and patted the script. "It would be better to change it to making up with friends and making a comeback in career, at least remarrying the ex-husband. The current version is too negative. I think it may be because teacher Yutsun has never married in her life. Change it to a happy ending." My eyebrows twitched. Although it was a safer plan, wouldn't it completely dissolve the soul of the original work? That's why today's cultural and art practitioners, suddenly, I understood the attitude problem that teacher Yutsun mentioned. I grabbed my bag. "Sister Lu, I'm going back first." I left their confused voices behind and rushed home in a hurry, rolled up my sleeves, and made some side dishes for drinking. Gu Jingshan leaned over from behind. This was a bit abnormal. Before, when I was busy in the kitchen, he never cared about what I was doing. "Why did you suddenly think of making this?" I put the lid on and put it in the refrigerator. "Of course it's because someone wants to eat it." "Yeah, when did I say that?" He sounded in a good mood. I was surprised. "I didn't say it was you." He left with a face again. I really couldn't figure him out. Fortunately, these were no longer things I needed to care about. 27. When I went to the appointment the next day, I took out the lunch boxes from my bag and opened the lids one by one. Teacher Yutsun watched from the side and swallowed quietly. "It's really rare for a little girl to be able to cook these." I smiled and said, "My husband likes to eat them very much. He never says it, but I know that every time I make them, he will drink a few more cups." The teacher snorted. I set the chopsticks, filled the wine, and turned on the TV. The ball game would start in a few minutes. "I had 2 miscarriages for him," I said casually. "One was when I was pushed down the stairs by his younger brother, and the other was faked." Without looking, I knew what expression would be on the teacher's face. To avoid divorcing him, I did even more terrible things. Now I think that what I'm afraid of is not the disappearance of love, or even facing my own defeat. What I'm afraid of is an imperfect ending. Teacher, I'm scared to death. Now I finally know that what's really important is the right to choose an imperfect ending for myself. I understand what you were thinking when you wrote the last scene. Since you've lost everything, don't look back and keep fighting. So, teacher Yutsun, I promise. I looked directly into her eyes. As long as I'm in M.W., the ending of Copper Camel Lane won't be changed. The ball game had already started on the TV, but teacher Yutsun didn't look away. Her lightning, sharp eyes also looked directly at me, accompanied by the passionate voice of the commentator in the background. She nodded solemnly. When I got home and was washing the completely empty lunch boxes, I was still humming happily. The good mood lasted until late at night. Gu Jingshan turned off the lights and leaned over with one hand propping on the pillow. His hot breath sprayed on the side of my neck. I refused a couple of times, but he was persistent. So I used all my strength and unceremoniously pushed him away. "It's very late, I have to get up early tomorrow." The charming atmosphere disappeared completely. He asked coldly, "Are you full outside?" "Think whatever you want." I sighed and picked up the pillow. "I'll sleep downstairs." 28. Teacher Yutsun, I'm going back to the meeting. Today's meeting was very important. It would decide whether the senior management of M.W. agreed to use the original plot without any changes. "What are you going to do?" Teacher Yutsun turned a page of the newspaper. "I'm going to threaten them with my life." Although I said so, in fact, I had run around in many ways, staying up countless nights, analyzing the market, interviewing many professors, playwrights, and film critics, and writing a thick stack of reports from the perspectives of literary value, social value, and commercial value. Today's young people, really. She took off her reading glasses and rubbed her forehead with a headache. I looked at her eagerly. This is the advantage of being young. You can still bet your life. Wait for my good news. Halfway through driving, I remembered that the USB drive with the interview videos was left at home, so I had to go back to get it. As soon as I entered the door, everyone looked at me in surprise. In the huge living room, there were well-dressed people and the sound of wine glasses clinking. Obviously, a family dinner was being held. I looked down at myself. to drive a long distance. I was wearing loose casual clothes, and the tip of my shoes was still stained with the mud from the teacher's yard. "Everyone enjoy your meal and drinks." I looked up and greeted everyone with a bright smile. I remembered, today was Gu Seungwon's birthday party. Gu Jingshin had asked me to come back early in the morning, but I didn't take it to heart at all. Before, no matter how perfect I behaved, Gu Kongwon would always find fault. With such a big oversight this time, he definitely wouldn't let it go. At the wedding 7 years ago, when I was toasting, I accidentally knocked over the wine glass and soiled my dress, which made him and his cronies laugh at me in public. Unable to bear Gu Jingshin's contemptuous gaze, I sat alone in a secluded corner and cried. At that time, a strange man put his coat on me. I felt so ashamed that I just buried my face in my hands. Later, when I wanted to thank him, I didn't know his name or what he looked like. I looked around at those cold and mocking eyes. Anyway, it definitely wouldn't be a Gu family member. "Sister-in-law, you're really a busy person. Do you still have the Gu family in your eyes?" Gu Kongwon smiled with a hint of mockery. For people like Gu Kongwon, sometimes unconventional means had to be used. I smiled at him. "Kongwon, sister-in-law has reserved a table for you at the bar. She's also ordered several of your favorite male models. You just report sister-in-law's name when you go later." He was stunned, and my mother-in-law turned pale with anger. The noble relatives of the Gu family were whispering to each other. Where was the look of a celebrity? Gu Jingshin stood far above on the steps, and his expression was indistinguishable. I waved my hand smartly. "Bye, I'm going to work." 29. With my unremitting persistence and the strong support of Lu Rong and several seniors, after weighing for several hours, the senior management finally passed the plan. Lu Rong suggested having a celebration drink, but I thought it was better not to open champagne halfway through. After all, Teacher Yutsun hadn't officially signed the contract yet. "Joey, why are you still so steady?" Lu Rong wailed. I just smiled. When I got home and took a hot bath, I waited for Gu Jingshin to get furious about what happened during the day. After coming out of the bathroom, I saw him sitting quietly on the edge of the bed, with no trace of anger on his face. Gu Jingshin pushed a black box with a silver border in front of me. I opened it and saw that it was a dazzling diamond necklace. It seemed to be from the same designer as our wedding rings. For me, I pointed at myself. He nodded slightly, "Thank you," although I was a bit surprised. My reaction was still calm. "Actually, I don't have many occasions to wear it, and besides, the occasions where I could wear it are really quite dull." On this year's wedding anniversary, his gaze fell to the side, and he suddenly brought up this matter that I had long forgotten. "I forgot about it. I've often neglected you in daily life. If you've been unhappy because of this during this period, I interrupted him. "Not at all." He paused and looked up at me, as if he was meeting me for the first time. "Gu Jingshin, just be yourself," I said to him sincerely. "Similarly, I'll just be myself. Our marriage is just like that, isn't it?" 30. On the day I visited my teacher with the cooperation plan, at her home, I met an acquaintance I hadn't expected to see, Jiang Zhihui. He was sitting alone by the tea table, wearing thin-rimmed glasses, still looking like a gentle scoundrel. He and I nodded politely at each other. According to him, the teacher had gone upstairs to look for a set of treasured tea sets. I let out an and then there was a long period of silence. "Has Teacher Yutsun found it? Why is it taking so long?" After struggling for a long time, I finally couldn't help asking, "Do you have a side job online?" Jiang Zhihui raised his eyebrows. I immediately realized that my question was strange and quickly apologized. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. It's really hard to find. It must have been 10 years ago. A gift you gave me when you were studying." The teacher's voice came from behind. "Huh, little Shen, do you two know each other?" No, we don't." The teacher leaned against the door frame and gasped for a while, then commanded, "You two, don't just sit there idle. Go up to the attic and look for it for me. Zhihui, you used to love reading up there. Maybe you left it there." The attic hadn't been stepped on for a long time, and there was a lot of dust. While Jiang Zhihui was looking for the tea sets, I covered my nose and looked around. It was an ordinary attic, but this beautiful round window somehow looked very familiar. I took out my phone and opened a certain social platform. In the fan list, there was a zombie fan who had been there for many years and would like each of my posts one by one. The profile picture was exactly this window. The pixel of the photo was blurry, and it seemed to have been taken at least 10 years ago. I had an impression of it because of the beautiful carvings on the window frame. I was greatly shocked. Everything was connected. What's going on with Jiang Zhihui? Over the years, He had seen all the random words and thoughts I posted on my account. In that case, the Professor John's marriage repair consultation at that time, wasn't it? 31, found it. Jiang Zhihui took out a set of well-packaged tea sets from the box and smiled gently. Let's go down. The teacher must be getting impatient. The three of us sat around and slowly sipped tea with that set of pottery. She had no children, and the closest relative she had was this nephew. I kept stealing glances at him, thinking of all the highfalutin talks and secret thoughts I had posted. I was so embarrassed that I wanted to leave immediately. However, there was still serious business to attend to now. The meeting went very smoothly. I got straight to the point. I didn't even have to use the trick of threatening with my life. And the company agreed. Teacher Yutsun, are you willing to hand over Tongtua Ali to us now? Teacher Yutsun pursed her lips and didn't speak. I knew her attitude had softened, and it was just one last push away. Actually, there's one more thing I want to tell you. Teacher, I won't come again tomorrow. This was also the tactic of playing hard to get that Jiang Zhihui had taught me, holding the teacup. She looked at me in surprise from above her slightly fogged reading glasses. M.W. is considering transferring a more experienced senior to take over this matter. I also think that I shouldn't continue to bother you, whether you sell the copyright to M.W. in the end or not. I want to say that I really like this story. Thank you for writing it. I lowered my head to the teacher and tried my best to hold back my sadness. Well, then I'll take my leave first. I got up and walked towards the door. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, wait a minute. Teacher Yutsun's somewhat annoyed voice sounded behind me. I didn't say I wasn't willing. I stopped in triumph, turned around, and there was a sly smile on my face. Teacher Yutsun angrily read the cooperation plan I had taken out several times. Jiang Zhihui looked at me with great interest. His gaze was so prominent that I couldn't ignore it even if I wanted to. The teacher frowned. As a well-known senior with a bad temper, she had been outwitted by a junior like me. She was a bit annoyed and vented all her anger on Jiang Zhihui. Boy, you wanted to see her, and now you've seen her. Hurry up and leave. After that, she waved us away. Wanted to see me. I walked out of the yard with Jiang Zhihui, full of doubts. In the late summer, the hibiscus flowers in the courtyard hung heavily on the treetops, and a few of them fell rustlingly, pure white and light purple. 7 years ago, I was also present as a guest at Miss Shen's wedding. Your dress was splashed with wine, and I took off my coat to shield you. You probably don't remember it. He tilted the sunshade umbrella towards me, his face half hidden in the shadow of the sun, smiling harmlessly. I will negotiate with your company as the teacher's agent. Please take care of me in the future. 32. The copyright contract was officially signed soon, and everything was carried out in full swing. As an agent, Jiang Zhihui was really pleasant to cooperate with. Time flew by. And in the blink of an eye, it was autumn. When looking through the calendar, I realized that today was the day Jiang Wan returned to the country. Gu Jingshan asked me to go with him to pick her up, but I refused. I don't want to disrupt Jiang Wan's life again. She is a really good person. The end of this cycle came the following year, when Gu Jingshan put the divorce agreement in front of me. I suddenly realized that this was the longest I had survived in countless cycles. Moreover, I hadn't checked the success rate data of the system for a long time. Presumably, it had already returned to 0. I held the pen and hesitated for a moment, but Gu Jingshan sighed, reached out, and held the hand that was holding the pen. He said, Joey, I gently but firmly broke free from his grip. The tip of the pen landed on the paper, and I neatly signed the 3 characters Shinjiaoi. It was as smooth as if I had signed it 1,000 times. I'm just sorry that I won't be able to see the day when the movie starts shooting with my own eyes. Gu Jingshan's jaw moved slightly, his masseter muscles tensed up, and his face was very gloomy. I put down the pen, leaned back, and waited for the omen of death. Gu Jingshan, I said at last, I think I understand. What? This system, all of this. I smiled. It's not punishing my failure, but punishing my compliance. 33. I opened my eyes. In the restaurant, soft music was flowing slowly. Surrounded by flowers, everything seemed to be enveloped in a faint halo, like a dream. I rarely came to places like this with Gu Jingshan, except for the time when he proposed to me. Later, I found out that this was the place where he had originally planned to propose to Jiang Wan. Actually, Jiang Wan doesn't like such a restaurant at all, and neither do I. I was lost in thought for a moment, then retracted my gaze and took a closer look. On the dining table was a small red velvet box. Opened towards me like a clamshell. and the diamond on the ring sparkled with a cold brilliance. My breath caught for a moment. I tried to call up the system, but there was no response from the system. There was no longer any success rate of saving the marriage. Gu Jingshan looked at the wine list with a solemn expression, neither happy nor expectant. He knew that I would put on this ring ecstatically and shed tears of joy because my dream had come true, after all. I had been looking forward to becoming his wife more than anyone in the world. I reached out my hand. With a bang, I closed the lid. Gu Jingshan's eyebrows twitched. He raised his eyes and looked at me in shock. The violinist playing beside us played a wrong note, and the beautiful meditation piece was comically out of tune. My heart was beating like crazy. I grabbed my coat, winked at him, and my facial muscles were probably trembling. Then, as if urged by something, without saying a word, I turned around and ran. The street in April had just been washed by a rain. The crowd, the wet road after the rain, and the faint smell of grass in the air all collided with me at once. I ran past them, greedily looking and sniffing. In the exquisite shops along the street, on the staggered street lamps, and in the windows of the buildings in the distance, little by little, the lights came on one after another. I kept running until my lungs were burning and my legs were sore. Finally, I collapsed on the side of the road, covering my face and trembling all over. The rainwater on the ground seeped through the thin fabric, and a real coolness came from my skin. Someone behind me caught up, panting. It sounded like the waitress who had chased me all the way. "Your bag," she approached hesitantly. "Are you crying?" I raised my head from my palms and laughed so hard that I couldn't catch my breath. 34. 7 years later, a sharp pain burst in my heart without warning. I clutched the bedsheet tightly, my face pale, and pleaded incoherently. "The child, for the sake of the child." I carried her for 5 months. Our child had already taken shape. Gu Kongwen pushed me down. I originally worried about running into Gu Jingshan here. When enemies meet, it's inevitable that there will be a confrontation, but strangely, I didn't even see his shadow. Jiang Wan was still very conspicuous among the crowd of travelers, tall, wearing a white t-shirt, and with slightly tanned skin. Her gaze stayed on the pickup sign for a moment, and then she looked at me, frowning, obviously feeling strange. I didn't marry Gu Jingshan, so naturally, I had never cried in front of a cake at a convenience store late at night. At this moment, to her, I was a complete stranger. "Who are you?" Although I really don't want to bring this up, but, I shrugged. Gu Jingshan's ex-girlfriend. Jiang Wan was stunned for a moment, and then burst into laughter. "Xin Zhaoyi, I've heard a lot about you. Only the good parts are true." I took one of her suitcases and walked side by side towards the exit. "Please don't mention it again. This relationship left me with nothing but trauma." "Really? I thought the trauma you left him was more serious. Failing to propose in public, this matter has spread all over." "You're the one,"